There's a big debate over sex work that's been going on Twitter for quite some time, and I guess it's been going on for a very, very long time. The question of whether or not sex work is actually work, whether it's comparable to any other job, whether or not it should be legal. And there's a whole lot of other things in this area, particularly with OnlyFans. You've got stories of many women quitting their professions to just become what they would describe as OnlyFans models. And you also have the massive expansion of porn, and you have many prominent figures talking about men getting away from porn addiction. So, boy, we got a whole lot to talk about in this episode of The Culture War, and we've got a couple people joining us to talk to us about it. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Debra. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Who are you? What do you do?
I am from New York City. I'm a conservative social media influencer. I go on the news to give political commentary, and I've been involved in the conservative online culture war for the past 4 years now.
And simply put, you do not think that sex work is work?
I think that prostitution should remain illegal and that it should not be decriminalized, and we should not encourage women to get into this line of work.
All right. We also have
Delta Hill, also known as Molly Smash, so definitely smash that like button while you're at that.
That's right. You want to pull the mic up?
Here we go. I am a best-selling author. My first book was Sexual Liberty, Memoirs of a Sex Worker's Fight for Freedom, and an anthropologist. So.
And your position, of course, is?
Full decriminalization.
Full decriminalization. So let's just start right away then. Why decriminalize sex? Well, first, how do you define sex work? What does it specifically refer to?
It's anybody who decides to sell their services and labor, this being sex, obviously, in exchange for monetary gain or goods of equal value. So, of course it is work. I don't think that it's the debate of it being work, because it definitely is the oldest profession. I think that the debate now is, why should we decriminalize, and what will it do to make both women and men safer in the industry and victims as well?
So just first off, I would have to disagree that it's the oldest profession. I feel like that would be a shepherd. You know, biblical characters were shepherds. They were selling the sheep. That was herding the sheep. That was kind of the oldest profession, because the Bible is our oldest historical document. But I agree with you that it's not necessarily a debate about whether it's work or not. It's definitely a debate about, should this be allowed in society? Should our government, how should they legislate certain things like this? Does the government have a hand in morality? And I would absolutely say that laws are morality, in a sense, where the government does have a huge hand in protecting the vulnerable, protecting the weakest members of society from evils like prostitution, like sex trafficking. And a lot of these women, there's this lie that the majority of prostitutes are at will and that they're doing it like OnlyFans, but 1%, according to data from the Nordic model now, only 1% of all women in prostitution are at will, which means 99% of prostitutes are forced into it by their pimps. So I don't think that I think we should do everything we can to end this industry and to get women into safer lines of work and to stop men's demand for sex, because they don't have a right to other people's sexual organs.
I'm not so, you both said that it's work. I'm not so convinced in a certain context that it is, because it's clearly distinct from what we describe as work.
Yeah.
And you know, even the fact that it is illegal today, in many contexts, I think, is it legal in Nevada? I don't know.
It's legalized in Nevada, and in Chicago they have the Nordic model.
They have specific laws about it, though. In Nevada, it's only in towns that have residents and less than 400,000 members, and it's only within brothels. So you can't be on the street prostituting yourself.
Yeah,
so basically, survival sex workers are still fined and left with, no option if they can't get into the brothels. So.
They sort of work around it, I guess, because when you're in Vegas, you'll like come back to your hotel room and they push these cards under your door or whatever, and it's just like a bunch of scantily clad women on cards, and you're supposed to be like, ooh, which one will I pick or whatever.
Right.
And then of course they're doing like room calls and stuff. So I think everybody in Vegas knows it's illegal to do, but they all do it anyway.
Right.
But I guess my view is that, and we'll kick it off because I tweeted about this, and I guess mostly sex positive, like pro-sex work leftists got really mad at me because I was seeing a lot of people say sex work is work. And so what I said was something like, if sex work was work, then a boss could require a female secretary to provide blowjobs as part of her job. That if it was the same thing as anything else, that if we were really just like, you know, you can hire a janitor, you can hire a sex worker, what's the difference? It's all work. Then a boss could create a job description and say, I need someone to do my laundry.
Well, yeah, if it is in the job description, I absolutely do agree that, yeah.
They could do that.
If that was part of their job, and they agreed to it. It was in their job description. They have consented to it.
Do you think
Right,
a man
that's-
should be
that
allowed
is
to
sex
request
work.
that, though? Do you think an employer?
Absolutely. I think men and women both, because actually half of my, well, not anymore because I'm retired, but half of my clients were women. So it is not just men.
But a man in a position, I think within what you're saying, so I would disagree that it was work. I was just agreeing that the conversation right now is not necessarily is it work or not. But
Right,
to
right.
speak on that point, I think it's work in the same way hiring a hitman is work, where you can hire anybody for a job.
I definitely don't think a victimless
don't-
situation is comparable to murdering
I
somebody.
don't think
and that's-
prostitution is victimless at all. I think every single woman who involves themselves in prostitution is harmed, whether they want to admit it or not, psychologically, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Well, I mean, we could agree that with any job, you're definitely subject to some sort of mental and physical,
I would disagree. I have a job. I love it. I've been working
I mean,
in
I
the
do too,
political
though.
space.
I've been working in sex work for 10 years, and I've
But I
also been
don't-
studying it for 10 years, and I'm doing pretty good myself.
Well,
so
I'm not at risk to be
independently
violently
wealthy.
attacked by a man
Absolutely,
in my line of
absolutely.
work.
And here's
Well,
this is the argument.
But real quick, what if you worked at a nightclub?
At a night, well, I personally would never, because I think it's very important for women. I was raised like this. I think it's extremely important for women to go out of their way to protect themselves and keep an eye out for their safety. I spoke about Brian with this on the way here, that in college, I went to University of Maryland, just nearby. I would never be alone in a room with a man that I don't know. I would never go on a date with somebody that I had never met and just meet up with them. There are so many ways that women can just be attacked, trafficked, hurt. And so I take extra precaution to make sure that I'm never putting myself in a position to be hurt. And I think prostitution actively puts a woman in the position to be taken advantage
Right.
of, to be hurt
Right.
in a way that professional jobs do not. They
And
have protections.
I
for
definitely
you.
don't disagree with you. So I want to make it clear that I absolutely do not encourage anybody under any circumstances to get into this industry right now, because
Interesting.
it is unsafe, and at least until it is decriminalized. Let's put it this way, at least until it is decriminalized, because that's where we start. When New Zealand decriminalized, and this is the gold standard, when New Zealand decriminalized sex work, this led to a immediate decrease in the amount of people partaking in consensual sex work. So even from a moral standpoint, if you want less people partaking in sex work, decriminalization is the only option. Legalization leads to more human trafficking. So that's obviously off the table.
So I wanted to go back to that point I was making about a boss having a job requirement. You said
Right.
if they consent to it, it's totally fine. So here's the question I have: Do men and women, and I think the trope is predominantly women, sleep with their male bosses in exchange for promotions?
Yeah.
They do.
That happens
Just
anyways.
across has that ever happened?
There's
Right.
no law on the books that will stop that. Government cannot legislate morality. It is not going to happen.
But it is taboo.
Quid pro quo.
Right.
And
And it should be. Quid
And-
pro quo should be. Like any sort of exploitation or coercion should be.
it should be.
Right.
Should be
Well,
what?
so
And it is.
Should be what?
not allowed, right?
Yes.
I'm
It
not-
should- I
It should
just
be
wanted to
frowned upon.
clarify
Yeah,
what
right.
the end of this
I'm
thought
sorry.
was.
Yes, it should be frowned upon
Okay.
to coerce, exploit in any way, shape, or form. If somebody agrees to it as a consenting adult,
Well, but
of
these
course,
are.
I also
mean,
believe that it should be 21 and up to get into any form of sex work. So.
But no, but if there's a female employee at a company and she does want to have sex with her boss and it does result in beneficial treatment and promotions, and they
then it's
consent.
not sex work.
I didn't say it
was-
was. I'm just
okay.
I'm asking about this. The first question is, do men and women sleep with their bosses for benefits? It does tend to be women, stereotypically, I suppose. The answer is yes, they do. People will sleep with their bosses in exchange for benefits and promotion. A lot of the time, it is consensual. The woman says, like, I'm gonna, this guy, I like my boss, whatever, and then it results in beneficial treatment. So the question that I have, and there's a reason why I don't think sex work is it's clearly an act carried out between two consenting adults. I should say it could be. In many contexts, two consenting adults say, "Hey, we're gonna hook up. We're gonna exchange money," and then they do their thing. They go about their separate ways.
Right.
I don't see why that. It's kind of shocking to me that that's illegal, in the sense that if a dude in a car pulled up to a woman and said, "Would you like to be my girlfriend? I'll take you out to dinner and give you an allowance to buy whatever you wanted," and she said, "Sure," and then they had sex. The difference between sex work is whether or not you decided it was a date or whether or not it was an exchange. So, but we'll come back to that. Here's my point. I believe that if we legalized sex work to the extent that it was treated like any other job. So a boss could say, I'm hiring a secretary. I need my mail retrieved. I'm going to need phone calls answered, and I'm going to need sex acts performed on me. If that was allowed, then you will have, there may be a social stigma at first, but market competition will dictate that for women, guys are going to be demanding it.
And that you
Right.
would have to provide that, because if in a world, if that were
Well,
to
you
happen,
don't have to, but if you don't, you'll get fired and find
Yeah.
another
You
job.
won't
that
get
suits
hired at
you.
all.
you won't get hired
Right.
because some other girl, if you're saying I'm unwilling to do that, it's very easy for the boss to just say, okay, I'll find somebody who will.
Yep.
Right, and then it's very easy for that employee to go to somebody who doesn't demand it.
But
So that's
If
I-
men are
That's how
allowed
the
to
free market
demand
works.
it, I think that if you're allowed to get away with bad things, more people try to. I think that's just the way human nature is. Humans are not designed good by default. God designed us not to be good by default, because you have to actively choose good to be a good person and get rewarded for the afterlife. So I think human nature defaults to wanting what's bad for us, essentially.
I don't think it's a want. I think it's a need. That's what survival sex work is. When it comes down to it, most people that are partaking in it are survival sex workers. So we can't forget about the fact that when you're in a position where you're starving and you're living in poverty, and this is an option for you, very little people will say, I'm not willing to do this, and I'm not willing to feed myself and keep myself alive because God told me no.
Well, I think it's for the men.
when it comes down to
I
it.
was
Men
thinking about
too.
the men in,
I mean,
the
gay
men in
men
the
too.
power position. I'm saying asking for, if a man was allowed to ask for a secretary who performs sex acts, I think human nature would cause almost all men in the position, barring a few good ones, to ask for that.
it'd
From
be a
their
cultural
employees.
norm.
I mean, this isn't a
Exactly.
legalized situation, and that's not at all what I support. I don't support it to be legalized because, of course, like I said earlier, the human trafficking has already been proven to increase in Germany, and
When it is legalized.
yes,
Oh,
when
wow.
it is legalized. So that's why I support full decriminalization. And I, like you were saying,
Wait, hold on, I'm sorry.
I need a clarification.
you're-
What's the difference between decriminalization and legalization? Is that not the same thing?
no. So decriminalization is basically removing all punitive laws and regulations. There's no over policing. So basically, if a sex worker is in a position where she is abused or exploited, she could feel comfortable to call the police and not fear arrest.
What's legalization then?
A legalization is you have to work under, you have to work in a brothel. If
Oh,
you're
like
not,
regulation.
Right. There's complete overregulation. Cops are still going out of their way to, like, if they find somebody who's working as a survival sex worker, they'll say, I will offer you this, that, or the other, some sort of bribe or coercion, and, like, basically rape them in exchange for lesser charges, if they find them with drugs, or say, like, I'm not going to fine you this much. So
So you're saying that
yeah.
companies
Victims will still exist, obviously.
So there will still be this. You cannot make requests for sex acts in
right,
in
like
public
everything will
settings.
still, like everything not victimless will still be illegal. Like in decriminalization, anything regarding minors will still be illegal. Forced fraud, coercion will still be illegal. Trafficking's still illegal.
What about a boss asking an employee?
quid pro quo illegal?
But that's what jobs are. Like, hey,
I mean, unless it was on the job description. Well, here's the thing: it's like it wouldn't be considered. Well, that's the thing. Is like it varies. We could have brothels in this scenario. We could have. It depends on how they legislate it. So with over legislation, sure, that absolutely could happen, and that's definitely something we could talk about. But in New Zealand, I have not heard of any scenario regarding this. So I like don't feel like.
because it's not really treated the same way as work. It's something else. I will say, I don't think every single guy would do it. Many men are married. Like, a lot of guys are married, and they're not going to be like, hey, honey, my secretary's coming in to give me, like, that's not going to happen. She's going to be like, what? You can't do that. The relationship would fall apart.
Maybe.
But I do think that, marriage is an institution that is in decay, to shout out Sublime and 40 Ounces of Freedom. And with that being the case, it may start going in that direction. When you were talking about survival sex workers, the only thing I could think of, like, man, if we were in a society where that we had socially enforced monogamy, the way that Jordan Peterson describes it, you wouldn't have
Right.
you wouldn't have that.
It's a societal problem. It's a cultural problem. It's not a government problem. Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Government is not going to fix this.
Yeah.
They can fix this by decriminalizing it, but they're not going to fix it ultimately. We as a society need to fix this. So when it was decriminalized, less people were partaking in the industry, meaning they were getting out of poverty. So it's a win-win for everybody. If you want less people working in the industry, decriminalization. If you want less people being trafficked and exploited and being raped by police officers, decriminalization, not the Nordic model, not legalization. So I mean, everybody wins.
So what is it between regulation and decriminalization that makes less women do this? Is it because when it's regulated, women will get coerced into this like regulated establishment sex work machine? And if it's totally
because not everybody wants to work for somebody, and they don't feel comfortable working for somebody. So I don't. I know that I definitely don't want. I don't want a madam or a boss or somebody over me. I have a gun, allegedly, in Matrix or not Matrix in Minecraft. You know, I have a way to protect.
You're allowed to have guns for Second Amendment.
I live in New York. So you know. I have ways of protecting myself. You know, if somebody wants to come after me when I'm at work, they'll get jumped by 8 of my cousins. So, you know, I mean, like, I'm good. But not everybody is that privileged. So if they don't feel like they have a way to protect themselves, which I always encourage sex workers to arm themselves, then maybe they do feel comfortable working in a brothel. And I feel like, even though I don't agree with that, and I feel like that's like an exaggerated pimp, that should still be an option. Just, you know, like, let's say I agree with owning a 10-round mag, but my neighbor owns a 30-round mag, and they're just a little bit kinkier than I am. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to call the ATF and, you know, tell the red flag laws and say, well, my neighbor's a little bit kinkier than I am. They have a little bit more, you know, in their mags than I do, so get rid of them. Like, it's just not fair. So
I think it's important to note specifically about what you're talking about, being self-employed, that only 1% of all prostitutes within the industry are self-employed, according to Nordic Model now. 99% of prostitutes or people within the sex work industry are controlled by pimps. So it's really important. That statistic blew everything open for me, because it's very hard to say that this would benefit the majority of people in the movement, trade, I guess you could say. I don't really have a great word for it, but not the majority of people are not like you that can leave at any time. The majority of people, 99% of people, are forced into it. They cannot leave on their own will. They are controlled by pimps, and they are essentially being trafficked. Even if they were, I can imagine that a few women consensually joined at first, where they had their backs up against the wall. They didn't have any other way to put food on the table for their children. I personally think there's always another way, but I can imagine the situation that they were in, where they may have consented to it at first, and then they just get stuck in it, and a pimp takes over. They want to share their profit. I don't think it's this idea where women are just sexually liberated and free. I think it's what it's always been, which is men abusing women.
So yeah, I'm definitely thinking that there is nothing empowering about this job, and there shouldn't be anything empowering about this job for it to be a legitimate job. I hear what you're saying, and I understand it, but if you truly believe that statistic, which I don't, because there are so many biased statistics about sex work, and I can get into that later on. But if you truly believe this, where's the empathy? Where is the empathy for these women? If we truly believe that they're all victims, or 99% of them are victims, where's the empathy for them?
The empathy is not legalizing it and holding their pimps.
The empathy is decriminalizing it, because it makes it safer for them, so they're not being harassed.
How would it make it safer for them? Decriminalizing prostitution would just take away all laws regarding to prostitution, which would essentially be a de facto win for the pimp sector, because now the government would not go after them. They can go after women. The most common age of entry for prostitution was 16 years old, with most women starting as young as 11. Those are the women I'm
cannot be prostitutes. Those are victims.
Everyone's a victim who's a prostitute.
Minors cannot be victims.
Minors can be sex trafficked and prostitutes.
Minors cannot be prostitutes. They are victims. That is.
You could be pimped out and a victim. Two things can be true at once.
I think if it was decriminalized, I mean, right now, if the police find a woman, you know, at a hotel or whatever, they can intervene under the law, remove that woman from the situation. If it was decriminalized, the pimp could literally be standing outside and be like, "Morning, officer."
But who's a pimp?
That's right.
Here's the problem. Who is the pimp? Right now, somebody that I grew up with just got arrested for the 3rd time as a victim of trafficking. for the third time. The traffickers, one of them was a woman who is apparently working as a sex worker, right? Apparently. In Idaho, if a sex worker pays their landlord rent money and the landlord knows that it comes from sex work, they can be charged as a trafficker. So what is a trafficker under the law right now, currently?
Well, yeah, clarify the law.
Clarify the law.
But
The
I
law
don't,
needs
I
to
don't
be
know
clarified.
that decriminalizing it makes it, I don't know, at least in this context, based on what we're talking about, decriminalizing it seems to reduce the options for law enforcement to get victims out of these situations.
So-
not that it's always perfect. Often victims will be accused of being perpetrators, right?
So I remember you mentioned the other day something about Trump and his stance on trafficking after seeing Sound of Freedom, which, by the way,
He wants to kill him.
I love it. I love Sound of Freedom. It was like heartbreaking. Here's the thing. Trump is not as anti-trafficking as you think he is. He thinks he is, but he's not. He signed on to a law called Sesta Fosta. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. And it made trafficking so much worse. It put victims and consensual adult sex workers into the shadows and made it harder for law enforcement to identify either one of them. So they're arresting.
Well, real quick, just to clarify, this was the online law about
It
shutting
was
down.
the
like
amendment
Backpage.
to Section 230 that said that basically any platform that allows sex trafficking to be promoted on the platform can be held liable in court, and victims, people who
Like
get
Ross
taken
Ulbright.
into sex trafficking, can sue these companies. So it's a huge win for, it may not have worked in practice, but it was definitely in the mindset of helping sex trafficking
Well,
victims
prohibition doesn't work
to
at
allow
all,
them to
so.
sue. But the prohibition was taking away our freedoms. This is protecting the most vulnerable.
I argue.
It's actually prohibition in a general sense does work. We often refer to prohibition as like drugs, and the war on drugs is a failure, and alcohol is a failure. So you can make the argument that prohibiting certain commodities or certain substances doesn't work, but we prohibit murder. Like the idea that you can't.
Okay, then I will clarify. Prohibition of victimless crimes, specifically, because it's not going anywhere, and there's no
Yeah.
reason to even try. Sex work isn't going anywhere. Drugs aren't going anywhere. Anything victimless is not going anywhere. People are going to do it whether you like it or not, whether you feel it's moral or not. So let's make sure that the people that are doing it are safe.
But
If
I
we
don't think
really care about these
decriminalizing would
people-
protect them. And I also don't think either of those are victimless crimes.
I
I
mean-
think the person selling fentanyl to the 16-year-old kid who overdoses and now her mom loses her son, that's a victim.
Right.
There's always dealers who end up having people
I
overdose.
agree.
And same with prostitution. These women are much more likely to die of STDs, of AIDS infections, to be abused, to suffer
Reason
from
being
PTSD.
is that because police officers are arresting women for carrying around condoms.
That is not the why.
They're fueling the HIV pandemic right now.
That is not
Yeah,
the only
because
reason
they're
women
being
get
arrested for
abused in
holding
these
condoms.
situations.
But that does seem like an edge case. Like I've seen those stories. There'll be like a woman. There was I can't remember one. It was a few years ago. A couple women were walking down the street, going to a club. They had condoms. The cops stopped them, accused them of being prostitutes. One of them got arrested or something like this, and it was literally just a woman with a condom.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. But I don't think
Yeah.
that explains why women are disproportionately suffer from PTSD, emotional distress, physical distress. A majority of women who are in the sex work trade say that they dissociate from their body during sex. It creates a lot of issues with the mind and body. And I don't think that anyone is victimless within prostitution. Women are 60 to 100 times more likely to be murdered if they are prostitutes than your average woman. I think there are always victims
That's because
from
of
evils.
stigmatization.
No, I think it's because the
stigma
people
of
seeking
sex
to
work,
pay
the way
sex
that
are
people
dangerous.
speak about them, the way that people dehumanize them.
It is dehumanized. Buying sex and renting someone's vagina for your own pleasure is not human. That is not morally right. That is wrong.
It's not renting their body. It is renting their. It is literally paying their services and labor. So this is where.
And what
this
is their
where we
services and
disagree.
labor? Essentially,
Whatever we consent to. It's not even always sex. When you go to a sex worker, sometimes you're just paying just to talk to them, or you're paying for completely non-sexual things. It's not always sex or
That's called
inherently
therapy.
sexual.
that's called
Right. And so when the
companionship.
people were coming to me, they would tell me things that they didn't feel comfortable telling to a therapist because the therapist was a mandatory reporter.
Yeah.
So
well,
they
maybe
got
that's
it
in
off their
place for a
chest.
reason, to protect people. If somebody wants to say, I'm going to kill myself, I'm a danger to myself, I want to kill my mom, stuff,
Well, it's
there's
not
certain
always
laws in place for
something like
therapists to
that.
report that, to protect their safety. So I think that if people need therapy, they should absolutely go to a true therapist and not a sex worker.
Well, I mean, this is kind of a scary thought. I mean, that would imply that there are people who are like, I need to talk to someone about this, and then they sit down with you, and then explain some very serious crime they've committed, knowing that you're not going to report them.
Or if you do,
That's-
that now
I
they
mean,
know
like-
who they told it to and who to come after. That seems like you're putting yourself at risk again, even more so.
That's the
a
risk
scary
you
thought.
have to be willing to take if you're doing the job. Just like people who work in hazardous waste disposal, they're working with needles that have, HIV on them. If you're working as a plumber, you're exposing yourself to fecal matter and all that. You can explain a job and make it sound disgusting and degrading and dehumanizing all you want. Like what's it called? Just came to my mind. Proctologist. We can make that job sound as horrible as possible, but we need them.
I have a question for you. I read this a long time ago. Is it true that there are legal service, like one of the most secure and legal sex work's position is providing sex work to the disabled?
Yeah.
Because I was reading this thing that said sex work is basically illegal everywhere. However, there's this carve out that allows medical practitioners to go to men and women who are disabled and provide them sexual release.
Sex work is not a human right. Sex work is not a human right, and it's paid for by the government. Then the government's just pimping you out.
Have you ever heard that?
But yes, most of our
Yes.
most of our clients are disabled, and they're seeking.
Most of them?
Most of them, they're disabled in some way, shape, or form. Either they're impotent, or physically dealing with something like MS or anything. And this is their way of seeking, pleasure. And I'm more than happy to provide that because I'm comfortable with my sexuality. I'm comfortable with myself. It doesn't bother me.
Most of your or most clients in general, in your experience, are disabled people?
In my experience, just from doing participant observation studies independently, of course. I'm working on 4 hours of sleep right now. I'm sorry, my mind is all over the place. But the women that I have spoken to and the few gay men have told me that most of their clients are disabled or people that deal which I already know what you're going to say after this, people that deal with anger issues. Because, of course, if you deal with anger issues, they go there, their anger issues are released, they go out feeling way better. So I believe that the anger issues in this world, the mass shootings, the everything, the abuse, all of this going on, sexual frustration.
I had a friend who was a dominatrix a long time ago. She told me that a lot of her clients were very powerful, wealthy men who never, in no area of their lives could experience domination, and that's why they went to her. And it wasn't overtly sexual. It was she would make them clean the floors and stuff like that, and they'd pay her thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that was another one of my jobs as well.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Some super rich dude is I will mop your floors.
I want to be degraded.
Yeah.
The shame culture is just very distasteful, in my opinion.
There was one moment where rent was due, and so she calls a guy yelling at him, saying, where's my check, slave, and things like this. And he's like, I'm sorry, saying, mistress, whatever. And she goes, I want it overnighted now so I can pay my bills, and I want $3,000. It's anything you say. Yes, mistress. Sent her a check.
Yeah.
But the guy loved it.
And he
was
it
a
too.
millionaire.
We love it too. We love it too.
Our society has gotten so off the path.
so weird.
It's crazy. People are not getting married.
But it's
they're murdering their
happening.
babies. They're asking to be degraded and mop people's
The
floor and then pay for
politicians-
it. What's going on?
The politicians that are against this, they think that us sex workers don't know who they are when they come and see us. We know who they are. It's the same ones that are voting against these bills.
Yeah.
I hope they continue to vote against these bills.
But while
It's the
participating
same
in
one.
it?
While participating.
should
No,
be out
I
of
think there's a
office.
whole other problem with that. That's gross.
There's
Yeah,
so much
that's-
hypocrisy.
Look,
Of course, in politics.
You might argue it's good they're voting against it. You might argue it's good they're getting the services. My view is get the hypocrite scumbag politicians
Absolutely.
out of there.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah,
I'd
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo, go team.
Yeah. You get a politician
Nice.
who outright says it's wrong and we shouldn't do it, who doesn't participate and votes for it, and then you get a guy who says it's good, it's fine, I do it, I got no issue with it, and that's whatever, just be honest about it.
You know what? That's very ironic because it's not ironic, but that's very common on the extreme far right of the aisle where they're extremely, this has just been a funny thing, the same hypocrisy where they're like, we hate gays, we're so against gays, and then
Yeah,
they all come out as
exactly.
secretly
Yeah,
gay, paying male prostitute, it's crazy. I
Right.
agree. No
That is funny.
hypocrites, just live the life, live the words that you speak, and if you don't believe in what you're saying, then don't say it.
So
Right.
let's talk about the technological development here. OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So I view OnlyFans as prostitution. It's
It's survival sex work online.
But why is it survival? I mean,
How's it survival? We're making millions.
Yeah, there are tons of
Supposedly.
stories where one woman was a police officer making $50,000-$60,000 a year.
School teachers,
Nurses, and they're like, "Wow, I'm making six figures now."
Yeah, they lying.
They're not making that money. You don't think?
You could just tell a media outlet how much you make, and they could just publish it and not. They're
Sure.
lying.
People are
But,
throwing
like,
a lot of money on OnlyFans.
they have
If
photos.
you say you make a lot of money, that means you're telling them you have really good content to offer. And 99.9% of the time, do you really? I mean, who believes the fucking media? I'm sorry, but who believes?
Well,
the media?
if I'm looking at a woman who they show a bunch of photos of her as a police officer, then they show a bunch of photos of her scantily clad, and she's living in a big house. Sure, maybe she rented a fake house and is pulling a fast one, but there's tons of these stories. So at the very least, it may be the outlier, but there are women who are like, "Wow, OnlyFans money."
Yeah.
Was it Black China who made like $8 million a month or something?
Oh, I'm sure that there
But-
absolutely
but
are.
hold on.
Those like the top.
The top accounts like that, I
They-
don't think are sexual. There's celebrities.
A lot of teasing. They'll wait like 20 years just to see a nipple pop out.
No, but some of it, a lot of it is there was some minor. This is a crazy story. There was a minor who said, as soon as I turn 18, I'm posting on OnlyFans, made $1 million overnight, and people were like, well,
Jesus
hold on a
Christ.
minute. How did you get all that content
Right.
on midnight? Unless you made it when you were a minor, in which case,
Child pornography.
right? But
That's gross.
Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to touch on that topic. Like when it comes to Twitter, first of all, I cannot tell you how many accounts I have had to tell, like in the comment section, like stop posting your links or your pictures in the comment sections where there's Twitter is 13 plus. Like I cannot stress this enough. Twitter is 13 plus. They need to get the hell off that platform.
That's
Twitter-
what
I-
Like that is just not the place. And because of Sesta Fosta, that is what caused the influx of all of this. The influx of OnlyFans, the influx of all of these people on a site for 13 plus is because they can't have their own site.
I would
I think-
disagree. I would say it was the degeneration of society that has, and the
Oh,
sexual
it's been there.
liberation
It has
of women.
been there.
Well, I think the
Girl, it has
sexual
been there.
revolution combined with the recent degeneracy of society and the reducing marriage rates, the reducing child rates, people not having as many children, they're not really getting married as much, they're not staying married. I think all of this combined has led women to this idea of I don't need no mans, I can make all my money by selling my body, I'm an independent woman. And it's a mix between the original feminist idea of, well, not even feminist, just traditional femininity, the original idea that like women shouldn't be forced to work. We should have the option to stay
Right,
at
we
home
shouldn't be
and-
forced, but we should have an option.
Not
but
sexy
do you know
forced,
why?
yeah.
Do you know why prostitution is even illegal?
because it's wrong.
It's
'Cause it's work.
illegal because
Because you're buying sex from someone, which is
because
wrong.
it built the West. It built the entire West. So when Prohibition began with alcohol, they also outlawed prostitution. What happened is sex workers started building brothels, and then they started building schools, and then they started building churches, and then they started building homes and businesses. And the men didn't like the fact that women were making so much money, so they said, we're going to keep this illegal. Here we are.
I have a question. Do you need an ID to be on OnlyFans?
Yes.
So when you sign up for OnlyFans, they say send us a picture of your ID.
Yes.
Who
Okay,
takes the
good.
taxes out?
They send it. They make you.
No, but I mean like a viewer.
A
like-
viewer.
Yeah, if like someone who wants to watch a woman who pays the $10 a month, does that?
I had to upload because there's
As
a
a
couple
creator?
accounts that I paid for.
Oh.
No, there's a couple accounts that I paid for because I like watching porn.
But they made you send an ID in.
The only reason that my account was verified anyways because I was a content. No, wait, no, that was for AVN. I believe because I don't have an OnlyFans. That was a long time ago.
We
I
go
don't
out on a
remember.
limb
They
and
should.
say
Let's just
probably
say maybe not.
Because I
But if
feel
they
like it's
do,
like
they
Twitch.
should.
Oh man, is
When it
OnlyFans
comes
even on
down to like
Android?
porn sites, I believe that
Even
they
what?
should absolutely not show any nudity until you verify the same way that a porn star has to verify with her account. They have to not only just show their ID with a picture of yourself upside down, but your account has to be written on a piece of paper, and you as a viewer should have to do the same thing. I mean, like, it's literally that easy. There should be absolutely nothing
I would
to
agree
be
with
seen.
that wholeheartly.
And you
that
should at least
people
have to be
should
21
have
to get
to
into it if
submit
you want to.
information and be of age before consuming porn, even though I think
Like,
porn
18 is
should be
just not old enough.
completely wiped away. But
18's not old enough.
I don't think
but it's
18's
old enough to consent to regular sex, you think?
I I think that it's old enough to get married. I think that you're old enough to make that choice if
I don't even
if you want.
So
but
how do you even
the brain development, it really just falls into brain development, and porn producers are very
What's the OnlyFans app
they're
called?
assholes.
Is there even one? I don't know. It's not coming up on Apple or Android.
Really?
Is it a website?
Maybe it's shut down.
Is
Maybe
it an
they heard
app?
us.
I thought it was. Just a website.
It's just a website?
Yeah, it's
Well,
just
I don't know.
It's just a
Clearly, I have
website.
no idea. Okay.
I have zero.
I
used
know
all
it
my
comes to,
Twitch
like,
Prime
AVN and
subs.
Chatterbait,
I
but
don't have
AVN shut
anything.
down.
I thought it was an
So-
app.
Oh my god, I lost
I'm
my
a
train
Twitch
of thought.
girl.
I don't even
So
remember.
my thing is, if hypothetical, because I don't know, I guess I'll have to look into it. If you are not required to have an ID for pornographic OnlyFans accounts, then the executives of OnlyFans should be criminally charged and arrested, and
Yes.
the people selling the content to minors should also be charged.
What about Elon Musk? Should
For Twitter?
Should he be criminally
Yes.
charged? Yes.
So
That's what FOSTA SESTA was essentially about. These social media platforms.
Right. Okay. High five.
Like you're on, like on TikTok, there was an experiment done. I don't remember. I believe it was a Daily Wire member, but they made a TikTok account. They wrote that they were 8 years old. They were still able to make the account, even though the age on TikTok is also supposed to be like 13 plus. Within first it's like Roblox, random things, and then within 2 days they're just getting nonstop porn on their For You page. An 8-year-old, and I've definitely seen this on
TikTok is a
social
cancer.
media. Where
I don't even have a TikTok account.
I've
I don't
seen
wanna
this
look
on
at it.
TikTok where these people will come up on my page. It's children dancing extremely sexually, and I've reported these videos saying that minor safety
Makes
is
me
at risk
sick.
here. But what the law of FOSTA SESTA was essentially supposed to do, it was repealing Section 230 to not have this veil. Same with free speech, First Amendment, that social media companies could just ban us, do whatever they want. No. The only reason that they got special government benefits is because they said they were an open platform.
Like, where is CPS when these people are exploiting their children like this?
That's
Yeah.
a whole other issue,
Where?
the parent
Like,
side. But
I,
a lot
like
of
as much
children
as
are
I don't like
independent.
government involvement, like that's one area where I'm like, maybe.
Well, either way, I think
So
that
here's-
it was a
here-
good law to allow these companies to sue. If I'm on Twitter, I'm an 8-year-old boy, I see all this stuff, someone's like, click this link, hire a prostitute, and I suddenly get myself in a dangerous situation just from being
Right.
online. I think that my parents should be able
It's that
to
easy.
sue
They can
Twitter
track
for
exactly
allowing
where you are
that.
and just snatch you up, and you're gone.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I mean,
that's why
we've all seen it.
Do you agree that the government should be, or individuals should be able to sue companies for allowing that to take place on their
Absolutely.
platform? Well, that's
Absolutely.
what
But-
FOSTA SESTA was.
But I disagree with that. I
Yeah.
think that's a cop out.
I don't think that's what SESTA FOSTA was. I believe that SESTA FOSTA definitely targeted like sites for consenting adults.
It was-
but go ahead. Yeah.
It was like Backpage was a big
It
deal.
was Backpage.
That got shut down.
Yeah.
The argument was by allowing Backpage, the law enforcement could more easily track traffickers, and by
Right.
getting rid of it, they push it underground. But you asked me about Elon Musk. Here's my position. If Elon Musk came out and said, "Oh, by the way, the X app is now officially X on the App Store," because when I was searching for
I saw
OnlyFans-
that this
Wasn't
morning.
it banned
I
in
refreshed
India or
it.
something like that because of the X? There was like banned in India or
I don't
Indonesia
know.
or something like that.
But if Elon Musk's position is that sex content, explicit adult content, is allowed on the platform, and 13-year-olds are allowed on the platform, then he should be held criminally liable, because you're basically, look, you can't open an adult bookstore with a big sign saying 13 plus welcome,
And he knows.
and then let people
He
in.
absolutely knows. It's rampant.
No, hold on. To be fair, I'll give
Allegedly.
him the benefit of the doubt in that he recently acquired the platform, took tremendous action against trafficking stuff and exploitation content.
Significantly less porn on the website or on the app now.
and so I actually think it's more so of him taking the reins and trying to get things. And if we went to him now and said, "Hey, one or the other, either sex work is allowed or 13 plus, but if you're going to allow sex content, then you've got to verify every
Right.
person on the platform." And so, what's the easy?
And
The
you can
easy
either
thing is to ban
cen-
it.
Well, either that's one option. You could censor the profiles that are obviously like
Restrict those profiles to verified IDs only.
Right.
So if you have an account on Twitter that posts sexual content,
it's all about protecting the children. Like when it comes down to
Right.
it,
We're really
what
doing
our-
Elon's
our-
work for
our-
him right now.
absolutely. I
Elon,
hope
if
you
you're
hear that.
watching that,
This is our goal.
Jinx.
All of us at the end is protecting children. So yeah,
and women. For me,
and
it's
women,
also
women and children, of course. Yeah,
There's a really
And men, everyone. Protect everyone.
Everyone.
right,
Right.
exactly.
So somebody who wants to
All
post
lives
these
matter.
things on Twitter, their account is auto blurred, and you can only see the posts, any photo or video, and you can only see it if you've uploaded an ID verifying your identity.
Right, and he's the richest man in the world. Don't tell me that he can't hire a staff.
Well, I have
to
a
get that
question
done.
for both of you. if we are operating under Section 230, which is assuming that these social media platforms are essentially open public forums in the way that all constitutional laws apply in open public forums, as compared to like limited forums, whatever. It's a whole thing about freedoms. But specifically with an open public forum, you can't walk through Times Square butt naked. You will be arrested for public nudity.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what's the difference?
I was just talking about that, actually.
Completely agree.
Yeah, so now with the
Is it a
social
public
media
platform, or
platform,
is
if it's an
it-
online public open forum, then why shouldn't the same government laws of public nudity apply to these apps and ban anybody from uploading stuff, regardless of this whole license stuff? I don't think it should be allowed on the platform at all because it's public indecency. So
You're-
Right, exactly.
Strip clubs are allowed.
strip
So-
clubs are allowed.
But you have
It's
to
not
verify.
public.
Right, like
Exactly.
you could, like
Yes.
as long as
Which
you're
is-
as long as you're in the LGBT community, you can walk around with your wang hanging out in front of
Or the naked
literally
cowboy in
any
Times
age.
Square.
Well, he's in his underwear.
But if a consenting
Sometimes.
adult is in
never
a
naked.
room with anybody,
Pushes it on the butt part.
I don't get it.
Yeah,
Well,
but
and-
what's the
and-
difference then? Because that is a strip club is privately owned. It's a limited forum. You have to pay to be a member. They can kick you out. Whereas the only reason that these social media companies like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, the only reason that they have protection from being sued, they have a shield from the government, is because they brand themselves as these open public forums. So
No,
if-
I
yeah.
agree. So the difference is, if you are on an open Twitter page, like my Twitter, you can go there, you can see whatever I say.
Yeah.
As long as I'm not posting anything that breaks the law or whatever, that's
Yeah.
fine. But the moment you cross into adult content, you now have to become a private establishment that requires identification verification.
right?
So you can be on Twitter and post all that stuff, but your account is locked to anybody who's not verified.
Well, this is like your ideal, what it would be like ideally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for me at least, it would be ideal that
not too much to ask
no
for.
one would upload these and that they can make your own website or use Pornhub if you want to upload porn. But I think social media apps, that they should stay true to why they were given these rights in the first place, where it should be a public forum where the same laws that are in our Constitution apply to social media apps. I don't think there should be any difference on social media, because I think that leads to situations like Donald Trump being banned from Twitter. The more power we give to these social media companies, the less power we have as individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Well, all right then. We're all in agreement. Yeah. The
Bang the gavel.
big problem is that I think early on in the internet, they did not, it was small and it didn't have that big of an impact, and they
Yep.
didn't care all that much. And now it is life. Everyone's on the internet 24/7. So for some reason, because we talked about this on IRL, for some reason, if you go out into Times Square and hold up a big picture of pornography, yeah, you'll be arrested.
Straight to jail.
Yeah, right to jail, believe it or not.
Unless you have words with it, actually, because then it would be protected as well. I don't know where the
You're like,
laws
what
get blurred,
is
but
art?
There's
Like,
free speech
That's what it
laws.
comes down to. Like, what is art?
Well, if you have
No,
speech
but-
attached to it, it
A,
could be
Really?
protected.
I didn't know that.
a picture of a woman who's posing, and it said like, "What is art?" Yeah, you might actually have a legal
That's
question.
protected under the First Amendment.
Don't
actually.
do that.
But right, yeah, don't.
Don't do that.
But like overt pornography, like a photo of like hardcore penetration.
Like what Marjorie Taylor Greene showed at the
Right.
trial of Hunter Biden.
Oh man, was
of
that
those?
not censored though? Was it blurred?
It was censored for us when we saw it, but I don't believe it was censored on the House floor.
So would
Are
that
you
be
sure?
sexual
Really?
harassment
that's
for
why it
everybody
was
in the
blurred,
audience?
wasn't it?
Technically, like,
I think it was blurred when it was reposted because you can't post it on social media, but I assume that people were very angry over it because it was the raw
Yeah, but
pictures.
the o- there's
You
only-
think she would blur it?
I kind of do.
I
yeah,
hope,
don't think so.
but
I
if she
absolutely
did,
don't think
that's
so.
definitely like everybody in the audience.
You know, the only reason you can't post it is
A little bit worried about
it's
that.
nothing to do with the sex work. It's the privacy
Biden.
issue.
Oh.
Because yeah, it breaks the privacy rule, not the porn rule. Twitter allows people to have total profiles dedicated to porn and stuff. And this is a funny thing about the free speech debate. You've got Gab, for instance. Gab is a free speech platform. They ban porn, and I think the same thing was true with Locals. When Locals launched, everyone is like free speech, but then they're like, hey, but not porn. Patreon had a similar issue where they took down, and everyone was complaining. And I'm kind of like, a while ago, I was kind of like, hey, there's a slippery slope towards banning stuff. But mostly based on ignorance and not having looked into the issue. Now I'm completely like, it should not be allowed on public platforms without that age verification for users like any other adult bookstore or strip club.
right.
Do you think the same should apply to like Pornhub.com?
Oh, yeah. And not only that, but I mean, Pornhub had to take down a whole ton of content because it was probably underage girls and trafficking victims. It was just unverified. Anybody uploaded stuff, and there was some bad stuff, as was reported in the news.
There has been many reports that a lot of women who were sex trafficked were found from Pornhub videos and been able to be tracked down that way, like
Which
lost
is
children.
insane because if I upload a video, like it's taken down within hours if like there's a person in there that like I either haven't like verified who they are.
So wait. Someone
Like,
said,
I don't understand. Like,
Cage the Mick gave us a super chat. Is this in reference to OnlyFans saying you just need a birth date and credit card number?
I assume that's what it
You
is.
see, this stuff really
that's
bothers
just
me.
bullshit.
Well,
That's
these
not
companies
enough. That's
are
not good enough.
all for profit. That's the thing.
Yeah,
None
you
of
don't
these
need an ID.
companies give
And
a crap
that's the
about.
exploitation. The exploitation is really the viewers.
So the biggest
the
pimp in the
consenting
world
adult,
right
right?
now is who runs OnlyFans.
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, let's look it up.
That's the thing.
It's like everything.
We should know this information. We should know who runs Pornhub. We should know who runs OnlyFans. There's a reason that we don't know who they are.
Rapali Gan started it. Indian
Trust me,
American
by the end
businesswoman.
of this, there's probably going to be way more that we agree about than don't.
She's
I almost
she was the
guarantee that.
CEO.
I think that's life.
Succeeded Tim Stokely. Whoever. This is insane to me. These people should be in jail.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
It's very dangerous. And I think something that I would love to get into a conversation about is that bringing it back to the victimless crime, I truly believe that prostitution hurts women at large. There have been many studies that show that 60 to 70% of women in sex work, prostitution, however you want to phrase it, suffered incest or sexual abuse from male family members growing up who had access to them. I think it's not talked about a lot, specifically what I replied on Twitter yesterday, all of these stats. It wasn't supporting the Nordic model. It was simply showing how many women are victims and how much they suffer. Even prior to getting into this, the majority of women within prostitution, if not all, besides the 1% who are self-employed, come from poor, racially marginalized communities. And I think if the government were to decriminalize it, legalize it, however you want to call it, do anything to make prostitution or prostituting yourself easier in this country, it would 100% send this message to these people that the government does not care about your safety. They do not care about your
Well,
health.
it definitely doesn't make it easier. It just makes it safer.
How? I still haven't seen how.
It makes it safer because, okay, so by criminalizing it, we are putting both consenting adults and victims in jail. And then, again, going back to, we are putting everybody's health at risk by arresting people just because of, the condoms that they're holding on to them. But we can go back to this little fact right here about law enforcement. It's from some article here from the LA Times. It says, law enforcement agencies in America's biggest cities spend an average of about $2,000 for each arrest of a prostitute, which amounts to more than $120 million a year in law enforcement costs nationwide. So, obviously it's a burden on taxpayers, but ultimately, when New Zealand decriminalized sex work, just speaking to all the sex workers, they felt safer. They feel safer that they can now report the abuse and exploitation that happens to them. Otherwise, they get arrested in a criminalized society. So let's say I'm working. Let's say I have a client. Let's say he's unruly. He's just a complete ass, or pulls a gun out. If I call the cops, they're arresting me too.
Yes.
It's over. So with decriminalization, that allows me to comfortably call the cops, have him arrested, and go on with my day. And that's it.
So then why don't you support the Nordic model? Because the Nordic model...
We haven't even defined the Nordic model.
No.
You guys want to define it?
So from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, because this isn't my
Right.
100% expertise, but from my understanding, the Nordic model is essentially what I have been saying, where women who are victims of prostitution can come forward to the government for safety and protection. It would still hold people who purchase sex acts as a felony and try them as a felony while offering protections for women to get out of the line of work. Whether it works in practice is a whole different conversation than what it is in or whether it works in actuality is very different than what it is in
criminalizes
practice.
the buyer, not the
Yeah, and
seller.
it allows the victim to come forward. So
Right.
this,
So,
yeah,
essentially, the biggest issue with that is the males and females that purchase the services of sex workers have rights and liberties that they should be able to exercise. So that's number one. But here's
is the right, or can you define what that is? The right and liberties that
the rights and liberties
to purchase sex?
purchase the services of anybody that they would like.
you do not have a right or liberty to purchase sex from somebody else's body. That is not a
That's
right.
anything. Whatever you do, if you hire somebody to, fix your toilet, that's their services and labor. So whatever they're doing with their body,
That's
doesn't matter
different than a
what part.
right. You have the ability to purchase. You do not have a right to purchase
They have
other
rights.
people's
They
body.
have rights and liberties to.
Rights and liberties are constitutionally protected. If somebody
Right.
just has a will to do something, that's fine. But there is nothing in the Constitution
have
that
rights-
says you have a right to purchase somebody
The
else's
Constitution doesn't
body.
grant you rights.
Well, the Bill of Rights.
That does not
Well,
grant
God
rights.
granted us our rights.
Right.
The government just protects our God-given rights.
The Constitution protects our rights from the government.
True. I agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So basically the biggest issues when it comes to the Nordic model is there's absolutely no decrease in the amount of people taking part in sex work at all. So if we're coming from a moral standpoint, decriminalization does see a decrease. The Nordic model does not. So that's one thing. It says 56.7% of sex workers surveyed in the Nordic model felt that that the law had made sex work more dangerous, while 29.1% felt that it had made no difference to their safety. Sex workers reported higher levels of anxiety and unease and increased stigmatization. The legislation provided no new exit services, which is very important. Actually, that's what my second book is about, for leaving the industry. So how do we get these women out of these situations? I have had multiple jobs that were not sex work. 2 of them I was fired for reporting sexual harassment because I was a sex worker before. And then one of them I ended up quitting because I knew what the outcome was going to be. Sorry, I was like, this is a very emotional topic for me. So there is no out for them. Like, what is the actual out for these workers?
I don't think it's necessarily the out
Marriage.
as much as marriage, absolutely. But I don't get married, have children, get a college degree. You'll be pretty good for life. But I do think that
Yeah, not the college one, but
I mean, just rely on men. That's
income-wise.
That's the
No,
answer. Just men.
I think
general,
men
like,
should rely on women just as much, though. Men cannot survive without women. Women and men need each other equally. We're complementary to each other.
And
God created us together. But specifically to answer your
Is
question,
it easy for women who are in sex work to find a good man?
definitely not. That was something I
I
actually
saw that
wanted to
movie
get
with Julia
into.
Roberts, so I would say yes. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But
What
I
was
do
that? What was
think
that movie called? Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman.
it's more about, I think the true answer to this is the same answer to everything in society. How do we get the people at the bottom of society into a better lifestyle? We improve society from the top down entirely. We just make society better. Nowadays, people in poverty are so much better off than they were 30 years ago. People considered in poverty now can have TVs, internet, cars. They could be making
Refrigerators,
refrigerators, air conditioning, food on the table. They get
Clean running water.
Okay, so the answer is basically men.
No, it's we make society
Oh, yeah,
better.
absolutely.
We work harder.
What
we
about
Dudes
the women?
rule.
What about the independent women
love
that
men.
want to work, like the entrepreneurs?
love men.
What if they're ready? They're ready to get out of it. There is no resources. There's nothing for them to get out of
I think
it.
it's before getting into it. That's
Well, like-
getting out is a different conversation. But as
I mean,
a
it's
society,
part of the conversation.
Why is
It's
it
how do they
mostly
get
women
out?
doing this?
I mean,
Biology.
It's most in demand.
But right, that's just like a natural function of humanity. Men want it, women gatekeep it,
And it will
women
always
can
be
sell
that
it.
way, and it will always be happening. So
Yeah.
it always circles back. It circles back to it will always be happening. So let's make sure that it's safer for those that are partaking in it because it will not stop.
So here's
Nothing's going to stop it.
I was recently in Mexico and I was at the border. There's like a big hole in it right in Tijuana.
yeah, you
It's
could
crazy.
just walk through to California.
Like literally on the beach in Tijuana. You can walk right through. If you're obese, you're not going to be able to. But I looked at the bollard fencing they have, and I'm like, I could literally just walk into America right now. There was one border patrol agent on the other side on a hill, and
That's
I'm like,
insane.
You know, everyone did that during COVID when they didn't want to get tested. I have a lot of family
just walk
friends who
through.
just walk through from Mexico because they didn't want to get a COVID test in Mexico, so you just walk through.
But so-
everyone does that.
So my point ultimately is, we didn't used to need to have law enforcement building this barrier because of we had a society and a culture that had an infrastructure that worked for us better than it does today. And now our society is so fragmented, dejected. Now it's just let the government take care of it and people absolve themselves of responsibility. Right. So what ends up happening is we keep saying we need a legislative approach to how we deal with this problem when the problem is purely cultural. Why are women getting involved in sex work? Honestly, and as much as feminists probably don't want to hear it, with the decline of traditional families and socially enforced monogamy, you end up with, look, I'll say it this way. The greatest thing for guys ever was feminism. And I mean that not in the truest sense of the word. I mean it in terms of the dopamine hit. Guys who want to not work, sit around all day, play video games, bang whoever they want, and not have to take any responsibility for it, got everything they ever wanted. And now women have to have all of the traditional brunt of life, along with now having to have jobs as well.
Yep.
You end up with these things like, I love the 30 Rock. I love 30 Rock. You have Liz Lemon's character, Tina Fey. I can have it all, have a great job and be the boss and also have a family. And then it's like, not really. There's something interesting about requiring the end of socially enforced monogamy, the entrance of women predominantly into the workforce, which I'm not saying I'm opposed to, but let's just talk about the ramifications of this. It became a necessity, as most things do. It starts with a privilege. It starts with it's fine if you do, and then eventually becomes a necessity. Cell phones being a good example. It used to be, wow, if you had one, wow, that was great.
Right now you're on it all day, and it's just.
And if you don't have it, you're not getting hired.
Right.
What's your phone number? You don't have a cell phone? How do I call you when I need you for something? Now you have to have it.
Well, now the government
Or
gives
you're on
them
it
out.
too much.
Or you're on it too much. Women were eventually, at first it was like, if a woman wants a job, she should be able to have it. You can't bar her from it. And now women have to have jobs, period. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
So it used to be in society, women would find a husband. Men would be like, single men were questioned, like, what are you're not doing? What's going on? Now it's like total freedom and independence. But I believe that there are clearly biological differences between men and women, which result in net negatives predominantly for women. One example being men are typically the ones who are going to buy sex, meaning women will typically the ones in sex work.
Providing it.
But then there's also in the workplace, the fact that women are the ones who have children means that no matter what laws you pass and no matter what you do, men and women will never be equal in the workforce, period, end of story. Why? If a man wants to have a family, he can say, I will keep working all day and night. I'll work 16 hours a day. I will become the CEO of this company. And then when I go home, I will be with my wife who will have kids. She'll be the one who gets pregnant while I'm working. Mm-hmm. If a woman wants to do the exact same thing, she says, I will have to take time off to have that child. A man does not have to. That no matter how small that shift is, it will result in a net negative for women, making it more difficult for them to compete with men in the workplace. Right. Men will always be on top for that reason. Or I should say in the majority, right? So talking about how do we get women out of these negative situations, and there's a biological reality component to it. I'm not saying, force women to be...
if they consider them to be a negative situation, of course. I don't. I mean, personally, in my situation, I was married, and I ended up getting divorced because my husband didn't like my job. It didn't work. 4 years, I tried. Like, I tried to be...
It used to be that the woman who was married to a man was provided
during
for.
that time, I was not working. Actually, well, like, I got sick of not working for a little bit, so I tried to get, like, a side job. Of course, those were the times where I got into, like, kind of, like, small part-time jobs, and, of course, they found out that I was a sex worker and ended up getting fired for sexual harassment and all that nonsense. But then I ended up quitting. He was an amazing provider. He's a great person, and I still have a good friendship with him. It didn't work because I wanted to go back to my job. I love my job. And 4 years of marriage, gone.
I really wanted to bring this up because I was going to ask how I believe marriage is an antidote to almost all of society's problems. Of course, it has to be a good God-fearing man and a good stand-up woman. We can't just have bad people marry bad people. It doesn't help anybody else. But how are people in the sex work industry, however you want to frame it, how do you expect them to ever get married? Do you expect men to ever want to marry somebody who's had sex with hundreds of men? Do you think, how
not
do you
with
think
stigma.
that goes?
Definitely not with a stigma. I mean, the stigma is what ultimately is fueling the abuse. It's what fuels the bad laws. It's what fuels women going back into sex work. It's what fuels literally the entire situation. So
the body count stigma.
The body counts, everything.
Or
Well, I think
you're
the
talking about
stigma
the
means
stigma.
something
Like
that...
when we think of sex work, it's the thought that we have been given since we were young, right? Like what do we see on TV? Like there was an episode of South Park that I saw last night. It was hilarious, but it was created by libertarians, so clearly they would do this. Just dirty and riddled with STDs and disgusting and fat and gross, and like, of course, like if this is your view of sex work, clearly you're going to dehumanize them. But if you look at them like a person, like we should look at all people, we are all God's children, and like the movie said, God's children are not for sale. We are not for sale. but
You're
we
for
all
rent.
sell our service. What's the difference between getting me booked here, me doing the show and flying back, which is exactly what I did when I started porn. I came here.
There are no sex acts happening here.
Right.
In exchange
That's the
for
literal only
monetary
difference.
gain.
What's the
You
difference
know,
between
well, let's-
What's the
sex work
difference
and-
between me hanging out and cutting your head off? Like, there's a difference in every
Well, I mean,
different
but
hold on.
situation,
So
you know?
this brings
way
up,
huge difference, but
Yeah, I'm saying every situation's different.
but this does bring up a good question that I alluded to earlier on in the show. If a guy pulls up to a prostitute on the street and says, "Wow, you're so beautiful. Want to go on a date with me?" And then she says yes, and he goes, "Let's go out for dinner." And they go out for dinner, and then he was like, "You know what? I know it's soon, but why don't you be my girlfriend? You know, I always take care of my girlfriend. You know what? As my girlfriend, here's an allowance."
what's the difference
Is
in
that is that not prostitution?
It is. So is marriage. Marriage is prostitution.
What? How?
Definitely, 100%. He's paying her to sit there and
No,
have babies and cook for him.
It's
There-
a
there-
He's
mutually
taking care of
beneficial
her.
relationship.
It's a mutual,
I don't
it's a
think marriage-
financially.
I don't-
and alimony.
Emotionally, physically.
Alimony as soon as they get
Women who are
divorced.
married
It's
Well,
live
but you're not
longer.
having sex anymore with
Men-
alimony.
depends.
True. I would absolutely disagree. I think marriage, matrimony is beautiful. It was designed by God for a reason.
supposed to be, but
Both
it's
men
not
and women
anymore.
benefit from maybe what you've seen growing up, but from what I've seen, marriage is the most beautiful, rewarding thing. It provides you mental rewards. It provides physical rewards. You get to pass on your seed essentially and create new generations, which is God commanded us to create, be plentiful and multiply.
I mean,
All
you
of
have
these
been
things.
married before, right?
Me? No.
Okay, so I'm on my second marriage.
Okay.
I'm
Are you currently married now?
Yes, I am currently married now, and my marriage
Mazel
is
tov.
absolutely wonderful. It's the best marriage I've ever been in my life. It's only the second one, but it's great. And my husband is very supportive of my job, and because of that support, like.
But you're retired.
Your husband's fine with you having sex with other men?
No, but you said
Absolutely.
you were retired.
Like I do it for fun. Like I still do it for fun because I enjoy it, but I don't do it for monetary gain because I'm independently wealthy, so I don't have to.
How's that a marriage if your husband lets you have sex with other guys who pay you?
Because it is a social construct.
Because you
that
signed a
we
piece of paper? That's not what
sign a piece of
marriage is
paper.
supposed to be.
He's I married my best friend. What can I say?
But then you have sex with other people. That's not marriage is
Yeah, I don't think
monogamous
it's-
relationship. That
well,
might be a relationship, but that's
It's
not
a government
marriage.
contract. That's all it is. It's a
Yeah,
government
I
contract between
think
two
that's the
people that
problem.
agreed to love
But
each other.
That's the exact problem
but
in society.
So here's my view is that that's not marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That's some social construct.
2023
using the name of it.
Bullshit. Yeah.
So
But if I'm happy, what matters?
I don't
That
care.
matters
You know
if
what I
that's
mean?
not
Like,
marriage.
I'm just saying-
why does it
Truth
matter to other
matters,
people
words
as well?
matter.
I
Like,
think
I'm treated well. He's a
Good.
good provider.
No, that's a fantastic.
know,
I got
yeah,
no
we're
issue with
both
that.
very happy.
I'm just saying that marriage meant something, and then one day they were like, "Oh, marriage also means other things, and this means other things," and it's like, "Oh no, hold on." Like, if the idea of marriage was effectively a death contract, right? Till death do us part, and no fault divorce, you couldn't get divorced. I mean, you could under certain circumstances, but judges would be like, marriage counseling, bang the gavel. That was marriage. Marriage is like a merger in two people's lives and assets. Now marriage is dating. And it's like you go in there and you're like, I'm going to sign this paper that says we're dating. It can be dissolved at any time for any
I mean,
reason.
there's no difference between my marriage and anybody else's other than the fact that I have, fun in my job.
Other
like, with
people's
my
marriages
job.
are monogamous, where when you agree to become one flesh
To me,
under,
it still is monogamous because I'm not out there falling in love with anybody. There is no emotional attachment
but
to
there's
anybody.
physical. Monogamy is both
Right.
physical and emotional.
But if I go over there and service somebody's,
monogamy is committing to one
anything
person, but marriage, the whole concept of marriage is that when you become one flesh on the altar under God's eyes, whether you want to take the religious or even the government, when you agree to marry somebody,
No, I
you
mean, that's a
agree
big
to
difference.
be-
The religious and the government. That's a huge difference.
Yes, I
So-
know. I'm aware. That's
So
why I
it's
was
not
saying
both,
either one,
definitely.
whether you just sign a piece of paper or you believe that you're becoming one flesh under God's eyes for the rest of time, that becomes your soulmate. In Judaism especially, we believe that anyone can be your soulmate. You become a soulmate when you get married because your souls become one. And I just think that that is incongruent with what marriage is. You cannot be open. That's an open marriage, which isn't marriage. Marriage is monogamy.
I just looked it up. This is really interesting. Monogamy is pure Greek, meaning single marriage. Single marriage.
Instead of polygamy.
So as opposed to polygamy, which is multiple.
Mormons.
Right,
But,
so I don't have any
but
girlfriends
gamos-
or boyfriends or...
Manos and gamos means single and marriage. Gamos literally meaning marriage. By that Greek definition, you are monogamous. You are married to one person.
yeah.
But you're just sexually open.
No. I am simply just doing a job that I enjoy.
Which allows
Simply
men
just
to
doing a
have
job that
sex
I
with
enjoy.
you.
So, yeah.
I think
women.
that marriage cannot,
And
in the
everything
biblical sense of marriage, matrimony, it cannot exist. The whole point of it is that you can be secure. You don't have to be afraid that, not even afraid, but it's that security, that ultimate security. I'm committing to you. I will never be with anyone else besides you for the
I
rest
don't
of
feel
my life.
insecure in my marriage though, and he definitely does not. So I mean,
But this is the thing. It's like
It might work for you, but it's definitely not going to
You
work
know,
for everyone.
which is
I
okay.
feel like-
That's okay. I think that's the point.
I feel like you're describing marriage as, say, like a nice artisanal brie, and you're describing like American pasteurized processed cheese product.
Okay.
So I'm not saying this to be a dick.
I love both.
No,
I
it's
love
fine.
cheese.
What I mean is, for the longest time, marriage was a death contract. Cheating was like you'd get in serious trouble for having a relationship in any
It's a good
capacity.
thing we don't have that anymore because that'd be
I
insane.
completely disagree.
Adultery
If
is a reason for
two
divorce.
Death
consent-
penalty for cheating?
Death penalty. I never said death penalty.
I mean, like you'd say people would get like
Very serious penalties,
Death
like
sentence,
you'd lose
like
your assets and things
social-
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, you'd be shunned. If two people consensually agree to merge their lives, there are paths to dissolving that. But the idea that you can enter into this contract and leave at any time for any reason,
there's no leaving though. I don't intend on leaving.
not you personally, I'm talking
Right.
about marriage was till death do us part. And then Ronald Reagan and who else? Was it like Jimmy Carter or something? When was no fault divorce? It was like the 50s it started to come about. All of a sudden it was just like, nah, marriage is dating now. And that's like,
If you don't like him anymore, you can just say goodbye.
it used to be a master craft to make a delicious cheese, and we call it cheese. And then one day some guy was like, I can emulsify cream
Something
and put salt
happened
in
in the
it.
70s.
So
So what?
is American cheese actually cheese? That's my point. It's like legally it's not, but people call it cheese anyway. I think, in my view, you're dating a guy. You're not married. But legally, you'd call it marriage. There's something we talked about. I can't remember which state. Maybe Alabama created covenant marriage. People mentioned because of the degeneration of marriage as an institution. They've created super marriage, which is effectively marriage as it's always been.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Right. But the
Ultra marriage.
the idea that you're like, you know what? I am married, even though I don't do anything related to the traditional responsibilities of marriage. That's why I'm like, the word doesn't mean what it meant. And now it's like, you know, some guy driving a Bentley and someone else is driving, you know, a rundown, rebuilt thing. And they're like, we have the same car. It's like, well, you don't.
Well, that's also in the situation where if they're getting abused verbally or mentally or physically or something, that they can't leave.
You can
That's not
leave
true.
for
I mean,
abuse.
that's not
you
true.
can totally divorce
Yeah.
somebody for abuse.
Like in
no
an
fault
ultra,
divorce.
that's
just,
not
I
true.
don't like
That's
you.
not true.
You can always divorce somebody who's
no-
domestically violent.
Yeah, no fault divorce was like, you don't need a reason.
It's like Tim and I get married, and I'm like, Tim, you're not letting me get enough
They do this. They go to
cats.
Vegas.
Gotta go.
Like the idea, like
Yeah.
they'll go to Vegas to get married. Celebrities have fake marriages for PR and then annul
Kim
it right
Kardashian's
away.
72-hour marriage. Do you guys
70,
remember
yeah.
that?
That's not
Yeah,
marriage.
that's-
That was
No.
like a 3-night stand.
It was. Yeah, I was gonna say it's a
That's
fling.
ridiculous.
Yeah, but at
Barely
large,
that.
I think that this alludes to the negative feedback loop of men and women in society, where if women accept less from men, men will put less forward. It's the same thing with this idea of like courting women that doesn't really happen anymore. But men used to have to really try to win women over. They're like,
Right.
you're so beautiful, really make you want
Make a lot of
to
money and
provide for that. Yeah.
And listen, trust me, I
doesn't happen
I
anymore.
definitely advocate for a lot of the things that you're saying. I think that women should be definitely more modest. I think that they definitely should be more God-fearing. I definitely think that they should be 100% loyal to their husbands. I think that they everything that you're saying. I 100% agree. The only thing that I am concerned about are the less fortunate people that are not married, that are not dealing with the privileged life that we get to live right now, because we're pretty freaking privileged. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We all live like pretty good lives, but that's not everybody right now. So
I guess it
you know.
depends. Like, what do you mean by privileged?
I mean, privileged as in
Are you calling us
we're okay,
white?
we're happy, we're wealthy. I mean, I don't know about. I honestly, I don't know your financial situation, but we're doing all right, right? So, I mean, not everybody is, and these are the people that we need to think about right now.
I guess the question there is,
Wait, I feel like
is privilege a reference to?
get off the ivory tower for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, we need to think like that kind of like privilege.
But it's
you know?
like, you know, in my instance, for example, like I had a relatively rough upbringing, not the worst, but on the lower end of the spectrum.
Right.
And I had to work really, really hard, and I was homeless several times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's
So is it? I don't know if I would consider
to where
it.
we are in our lives right now is what I'm saying. Like, not like how we got there. I'm sure that like I have no idea how you got here in your life. I'm sure you have no idea how I got here in my life. I don't know how you got here in your life either. But right now, we're all doing pretty damn good.
But so I try to draw.
Is that privilege or hard work and reaping the benefits?
Okay, hard work. That's okay. But we can rephrase
like
that.
the distinction between some people who are in hard conditions but can't get out versus people who are born privileged, like they were born with benefits and advantages and things like that.
Right.
But I certainly would agree that today,
like
we,
people
we are
without
all
two parents, and
I feel extremely blessed. I thank God every single day for all my blessings. But I feel like we rushed over a very important thing where you said you 100% agree with the idea that women should be loyal, 100% loyal to their husbands, but then you're not. So how does that work?
I still feel loyal, but I don't want I don't want or need everybody to follow my lifestyle. I'm not encouraging my lifestyle. My lifestyle works for me. I can't guarantee it for everybody else. So it's very niche. It's very like not usual. So I can confidently say that it works for me, but I cannot confidently say that it will work for literally anybody else. So
yeah, I understand
like
that.
I don't want anybody to take these risks, these unnecessary risks, because they're like, oh, look, well, she can do it. Well, I can do it too. Well, there's a good chance that you can't. You know, I've been in this industry for 10 years. I've been studying it professionally for 7 years. There's a 99% chance that you're not going to do very well if you try to do what I do.
That's the thing too. OnlyFans, like the real number is like the average woman makes a couple $100 or less. There's very, very few women who are successful on it. And there's no difference between, like, say, Patreon and OnlyFans in terms of financial gain. So what people see on Patreon, they see, like, I don't know that woman's name. She did the weird anime sex faces or whatever. And then she was making hundreds of thousands of dollars per month. And then she started doing, I think she started doing,
Bella Poarch, the TikToker?
No, I don't know. I don't know who these women are. All I know is, like, there were some women who would make, like, anime sex faces or something like that.
Oh, yeah, God.
I don't know her name. But she was getting hundreds of thousands a month on Patreon, and it wasn't like, you know what?
Like it wasn't
let's do this.
technically porn.
There are channels like the NPC women that
oh my gosh,
that is very obviously dudes beating off to it.
Right. I mean, but then there's
really?
the HBO. There's people on HBO who are having sex. Are they porn stars too?
That's a whole other thing that I have a huge problem with. I hate how sexualized TV is. You can't go to a single movie with your parents these days. Oppenheimer. There's boobs on the screen for 20 minutes of the whole movie. Like you can't go to
but she
watch any TV with your family now.
She doesn't leave that studio and say I'm a sex worker now and not be able to get any other job. You know, like there's like what is porn? Like we see fake sex scenes in movies all the time. So
yeah, I think I have a problem with that too.
Why does the AVN Awards exist? Like why do they have to be separate from the Grammy Awards?
I think it's impossible for people who are in sex work to well, you're looking up, just a little change of topic. I think it's impossible for people who are in sex work to have successful marriages, let alone have marriages at all, because it does something to you psychologically when you have sex with hundreds of men or even more than even like 50 men. If you have sex with a lot of men, every single time you have sex with somebody, it affects your ability to bond with your husband down the line. And that's a big reason that Ben Shapiro has spoken about this, that if you have sex with more than 3 people before you get married, I believe you're like 50% more likely to get divorced. There's some crazy statistics about how having sex before marriage can really affect your brain and the bonding chemicals that you release after sex. So I do think that it sets women up who, if they ever want to get married down the line, it kind of makes that nearly impossible. And that's not even speaking about how disgusted a man would be with a woman who had sex with hundreds of men, because I would be disgusted if a man, majority, a good righteous person should find it gross that somebody would do that, because as a woman, if a man said he had sex with 200
women, so how are these
women
women supposed to get out of it is what I'm saying. How are they supposed to get out of it with jobs? How are they supposed to get out of it if marriage is supposed to be the option?
Marriage was destroyed.
I think so
there is no out. We need to make sure that the women that are in there are safe.
Decriminalizing isn't the out.
It is the out. Decriminalizing makes it safer. It makes it
law's not going to solve anything.
The
less of a law.
No, but I'm saying policy
will
approaches.
Fix it. I mean, it's been proven in New Zealand.
I disagree. I
disagree as well.
So keeping it criminalized.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying policy is not the solution to cultural problems.
That's what I was saying with marriage and lifting everybody up. If we as a society...
I'm not saying it's easy to solve these problems.
So, I mean, they should just live in
I'm not saying we should do nothing, and I'm not saying don't decriminalize. I'm saying the idea that... See, here's what will happen. You will say, let's do this policy. It will change things. Some ways in the better, some ways in the worse, but it will not solve the cultural problems.
Right, and that's where we come in. But we can't do that until it is decriminalized.
I want to play this video for you.
There's certain things that we can't do because it's a crime. What? Because it's a crime right now. There's nothing that we can do about it. Like, simply even speaking out about it is sometimes dangerous. Like I'm putting my life at risk even talking about it. Like there's some things that, you know,
certainly
you may not know
traffickers
about
get
it. Sure, for sure.
angry when prominent people, and you could be at
Exactly.
risk if you're speaking out. But it's true for a lot of politics. I want to jump to this subject. I want to play this video for you guys. You familiar with Poppy?
Yes.
She's got great music. I'm a fan.
It's like the drink?
No. It's a woman. I'm gonna play this video for you. Is the audio on?
No, it's the hands. Why the hands here? They're trying to touch me. Stop the hands. They're gonna grab me. I don't want the hands to grab me.
That's fucking crazy.
Stop these hands. Stop the hands.
Let me just ask you, why do you think it is this has 344,000 views?
Oh, fucking weirdos, man.
I'm
Or
just gonna,
people sincerely worried maybe about her.
No, she's a performance artist who acts like she used to do more of this stuff. Now it's more music. Her music's great. I love her music, by the way. But she has a lot of videos that are very much like this. And like, yo, come on.
Can I give my real
Everybody
answer?
knows what this video is for.
It's for men who want to simulate like women who are not into
Guys-
it, essentially.
guys cranking
jerking
it.
off.
Yeah, I recently tweeted something.
Do you believe in the patriarchy?
What do you mean by the patriarchy?
Do you believe it exists at all? Like, do you believe that it has some sort of effect on any
Yeah, what do you mean
part
by
of
like how so? Like
Just
define
like
the
in
patriarchy.
general, like do you believe that
What do
there is a patriarchy at all in society?
I keep asking you, like, what do you mean by a patriarchy specifically? Because a lot of people, when they say it, they mean different things. So I want to know what you actually mean by the
Like
patriarchy.
by that I mean like men are ruling everything. They're the cause of everything. They are the answer to everything. They are the everything. They're literally, you know, women are sub.
I
to
do
men
believe in the
every way, shape, or
patriarchy.
form.
I love men. I love having men lead. I think that it is ignorant to say that women do not have the major supporting roles behind all of these great men. And, you know, a great man has a great woman behind him and vice versa. But I love men, so I have no problem with men leading society. I don't think women should be barred from having being involved in society, holding political office. I think women should be able to do all of that. But I definitely am not opposed to men running society and women getting to go to shopping and baking cookies and doing all the fun things in life.
I think there is, to a certain extent, patriarchy, but it's nothing's absolute. It's probably like 60-40. So there's a couple points in there. One, men try to woo women, and
As they should.
But you've got a large quantity of men who are simps or white knights who will agree with the stupidest shit imaginable if they think it'll get them laid. I think these are mostly like male feminist types. That's why you find.
Low-key.
Perhaps. I mean, not always though. Aggressive, manipulative, sociopathic.
That's true. Yeah.
What's the meme? The meme was hashtag reset the clock for a male feminist to be exposed as a rapist and sexual predator because it keeps happening. It's not so much, you know, on social media, but 10 years ago throughout the earlier culture wars, it would be like this man was exposed as a predator who was abusing women and he was a male feminist. And it's like, right. They're called in biology. This is the literal term. I am not making this up. In biology, there is a phrase, sneaky fucker.
Really?
That's the actual biological term. And it would describe a situation where there is a dominant male who takes the women, and then there is a submissive, weaker male who sneaks in the middle of the night to procreate. Two strategies. One, the dominant male...
Sheep and the wolf.
Yeah, the dominant male commands, and then in order to procreate, the sneaky fucker goes in. And so that's typically how we refer to people like male feminists. But that's the actual biological term. So, of course, you know...
I'll trust that science.
It is, you know, and
Right.
But it's not like the insult fucker. It's like a sneaky one who procreates is a better way to describe it. But they say sneaky fucker. And that is, unfortunately, a lot of men. So going back to the idea of this patriarchy, the idea that there are men who believe they are women who are gaining preference in all spaces is an indicator of male dominance to a certain degree.
Right.
But it's actually very, very simple. Testosterone makes you more assertive and aggressive. Mm-hmm. And therefore, people with more testosterone are more likely to be dominating in society. Mm-hmm. And therefore, males in any capacity have a tendency towards domination over females.
Over everyone.
Right. So if you want to say that's patriarchy, I'll be like, well, it's unsurprising. I mean, you've got a bunch of angry males taking women's hormones and then becoming violent in some
Right.
some. I'm not saying
Yeah.
all trans people or anything like
No.
that. I'm saying
No, I mean,
They're-
there's definitely, those are the phonies. You know?
Hormonal
There are bad
imbalances
people.
can create significant problems. And this was a conversation I had a few months ago about a lot of these men who transition or at least try to transition, because I don't truly believe you could change your gender, but these men who start taking estrogen, all of their problems and feelings could have possibly been fixed, not 100%, but it's crazy that they don't try testosterone before they try estrogen. They come in with all these feelings.
That's actually an interesting.
And they're like, transition me, rather than just being treated as if they're a male who's lacking certain hormones that they need.
I want to add one more to the point.
Yes.
Okay.
Biological males are competing in female sports, but biological females are not competing in male sports.
Right.
That is, you call whatever you want, but that is another indication of patriarchy, of male dominance in social spaces. Females do not dominate in male spaces, even when they take testosterone.
I think it's in this world and society that, well, honestly, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I am fine with the men leading and the women following situation. I think if anything, that's easier as long as women still have the ability and freedom to do what they want. But just speaking from my own experience, even though I agree with this idea of men leading and stuff, I have never had a man or anyone stand in my way of getting what I want. I've been in the political space for 4.5 years now. I've accomplished every single goal and dream that I have set out thus far. I've had to create new dreams and goals multiple times because I keep accomplishing all of them. No man, woman, or anyone has ever stood in my way of me getting what I wanted. And I've never had a problem accomplishing
how
my
old are you?
dreams. 23.
23.
23.
Oh,
still
oh my
relatively
gosh,
young.
I thought we were the same age.
How old are you?
27. Oh, actually,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
turning 28 on August 3rd, so.
Happy early birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. By what age do you think you should be married?
I think an ideal age to get married is 26 or 25, 26.
Back in the
I got
day, it
married
was
in
like
19.
it was.
Oh, all my friends,
super
a
young.
lot of my friends got married within like the past month, actually, because I had like 4 weddings in a week. It's been crazy. A lot of my friends, especially I was raised modern Orthodox in New York City, Jewish community. Almost all my friends have gotten married, and not all of my close friends, but a lot of people in my community have gotten married from age 18 through the past few years. It's very, very common, normal. I think it's beautiful and amazing. It's just to each their own.
Do you think that when you get married, you'll stop working, have a family, be more traditional?
Stop working. It depends what kind of work. I would love to be a stay-at-home mom. I think that's amazing. I love all the little things. I love cooking. I love baking. I love decorating. All the little
very
things.
rewarding.
Yeah, it's much great. But I also think with me, I have the ability to do a lot of things at once, and I would always like to have something on my own. It doesn't have to be the grand scheme of like being a CEO of a company or being a lawyer or any of these things. But, if I decide to become a stay-at-home mom full time, maybe I'll open like a little cat rescue shelter situation that I do on the side, or I can help battered women in situations find things out. Like, there's always something that I would love to be involved in outside of family, just that I can continue putting what God blessed me with and my skills out into the world and hopefully make the world a better place while also raising better humans.
I think an important distinction in the conversation about women having jobs and stuff is that women have always had jobs, just different jobs than men. The idea was hunter-gatherer, and I was reading about how women can be what's called a tetrachromat. You guys know what that is?
No.
They can.
No.
They have four cones and rods instead of 3. Men can't be tetrachromats. If a man has the gene for to be one, they will more likely be colorblind or something like that. And this means that women can see more colors. Not all women. Some women could be tetrachromats. And they say something like, if you look at the clouds and you can see a purple hue or whatever, you're a tetrachromat. You can take a test for it. That means you're seeing more colors than other people. And you know why? Because women picked berries.
Wow.
Something like that. I mean, look, I don't know that. I was reading a few articles on it. And women would go out and they would collect berries and fruits, and being able, I got to tell you, we have all these fruits and berries all over the place. And I'm looking for blackberries, and I'm looking for, the wineberries are really easy to spot because they have these thorny red brambles and they're bright red.
Somebody told me to look for those while I was here.
Yeah. Well, we're out of season, but there are grapes everywhere. And right now the grapes are green. And when I'm riding past this tree covered in grapevine, if I look at it, I see nothing but leaves. If I stop and look really, really closely, I can start to see the grapes, and holy shit, they're everywhere. I'm so excited, like tens of thousands of them. But there are certain plants, black raspberry, for instance, where I'll have to go up and I'll have to look and try and see it. For women who have better, who can see better contrast to different colors, they're going to more easily see where the fruits and berries are. And so anyway, my point is, if you go back to the dawn of human tribal civilization or whatever with hunter-gatherer societies, women were working. They just
Right.
weren't fighting bears. You know, the men would go off and hunt and fish, and the women would walk around collecting fruits and vegetables. But that is still work. It's just substantially less dangerous.
Even more
Still
recent
work.
than
So I
that.
wonder what the
yeah.
argument is for women to stop working if for so long it worked out so well for women to be
Different-
working.
Well, it's different
And
work. It's
work-
that women don't have to work in like corporate America because taking care of your children, cooking for your family,
right, like they'd have their
cleaning,
baby
those
on
are
them while they're
jobs.
picking. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, you should
Yeah.
see the women in the subways in the city in the summer. There's these Hispanic women who come, they strap their babies to their back, they sell candy bars every day. It's been a thing in New York. It's just what happens in the summertime. There's also little kids who sell chocolate for their basketball teams. Like it's just, they sell cut up fruit. It's just the way that it is. But I think even more recent, a really good example is that cleaning in the home. Women weren't just buying Clorox and, you know, Lysol. They had to create their own cleaning supplies. Women had to become essentially chemists
That's
in like
true.
the late 1900s or late 1800s, 19th century, where women would have to know how to use things like borax and baking soda. These are intense chemicals that you
Yeah.
can create a lot of things with. And so they had to become essentially chemists, scientists to be able to clean their home without emitting toxic chemicals to their family. So it's definitely a
Lead.
job, but in terms of submitting to, in terms of
Radon.
submitting to a corporate boss in a company, whereas submitting to your husband and your family, I think that job benefits your family, whereas that other job benefits a company who doesn't really care about you at the end of the day because blood is thicker than water.
So, like, the interesting thing when I was thinking about this is that men and women had jobs. Women weren't just raising babies; they were foraging as well, and watching the kids. And men were protecting and hunting and things like that. And there's different societies and different people had different ways of going about these things. But then all of a sudden, men aren't hunting either. Women aren't gathering. Men aren't hunting. Guys are sitting in an office room typing on a computer, doing some like tedious task and filing TPS reports or something like this. And then the question becomes, what's like it's not the same as it's ever been. And so work is something entirely different and unique. And now I think the issue is humans are outside of evolution.
Right. Our
We-
brains have not caught up with technology.
And I don't think it's possible. It's a really interesting thing. I love that line from the movie Snatch where the guy's drinking milk or whatever, like Jason Statham, and the other guy's like, milk is out of sync with evolution. You shouldn't drink it because human technological advancement
yeah.
is exponentially growing and rapid, but human biological development is where we were 50,000 years ago. So now we have these gender norms that were constructed around human tribal life, which existed for,
And there's a
for
new
tens
one
of
every
thousands
day.
of years. Yeah, now everything's rapidly changing. Like our brains can't even handle Twitter properly. I'm sorry, X. The app is now changed. We can't handle this rapid
Use
flow
Twitter's
of information.
proper pronouns.
Yeah, we don't want to dead name X. You know what I mean?
I'm going to report you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is, we often talk about traditional gender norms and gender roles and stuff and women being married, but even by today's standards, work is dramatically different from where it was back then. Maybe warfare, fire brigade, these things were more dangerous, but now trying to adapt society to rapidly changing technology, I think, is one of the big hurdles.
Yeah, and it's this constant negative feedback loop. I've had this just plays into everything in life, dating, marriage, relationships, work, just everything. When women expect less, men provide less, and then it just keeps going like that. And bringing it back to like the sugar baby idea where whether it's like, oh, you'll be my girlfriend, I'll just fund your things. I don't think that is ever how it's supposed to be, because that leads women to say, oh, I don't have to lift a finger. I can just have everything taken care of. He buys me food, he cleans, he shops, he whatever. He does it all for me. I just have to be there and be pretty. I think that is not compatible with biology either, where
I mean,
women
sugar
need a
babying
purpose.
definitely is sex work.
Yeah, I
For
think,
sure.
well,
Yeah.
even outside of sex work, I just think that women need something in life to feel fulfilling. Women need to have a purpose. Everyone
Right.
needs to have a purpose. That's why people have jobs, to get fulfilled and to, yes.
No.
Oh, yes. So I think with the sugar baby thing that it creates a lot of difficulties and that should not be accepted. And it creates this idea that women should either do everything in a relationship, because it creates like two types of men for women to choose from now. The men who sit on their ass playing video games, why don't you order me pizza? Just literally do nothing for themselves.
Right.
Dirty clothing, wash my laundry. And then sugar daddies who provide everything, and women don't have to work or do anything at all. And that's just not realistic. It's a partnership. Marriage is a 50-50 partnership. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less on either side, but you're a team. And I just really disagree with society's modern day relationships, and they're really sad to see.
There's that song by Lana Del Rey, Video Games. You ever hear it?
No.
and it's just like I just find it to be super cringe.
Oh.
She's like, "It's you for you, it's all for you. Go play a video game or something like that."
Oh,
Like the
Video
lyrics.
Games by Lana.
Yeah, oh, I know
Right.
that one actually.
I was just listening to that the other day.
Yeah.
I
There's
love
the
it.
Meghan Trainor song about I am your mother, you listen to me. What? She's singing about a man and she's like, stop all that mansplaining, no one's listening. She was singing the song about men and I heard it, I was like, you're saying you're his mommy? That's disgusting, you freak.
It is also weird when like there's like the
She's married
Call
with
Me
a
Daddy
child.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've got
Freak alert.
I have bad news for you probably. I don't know if it's bad news for you. I have good news for you.
You got me a cat?
No, sex work is going to cease to exist.
Baruch Hashem.
Oh,
Completely
Hebrew for God
and
bless.
entirely. Yeah.
How come?
AI.
forever.
Artificial intelligence.
People
Well,
will,
you know, if that's
well,
the
how's
case-
that physical though?
No. So
Just like online?
what's already happening
Not in my
is
lifetime. So
on
I don't have to worry
Instagram,
about
I think OnlyFans, done. Like,
that. Oh yeah, for sure.
it will exist, but it's going to be guys making AI women for other guys. And women will
Seems
not...
gay.
So it's like trans men
it-
or trans women in women's
No.
sports.
No.
That's exactly
It's going to be a guy who's going to go on his computer. He's going to create templates for women. He's going to put in keywords, tell the AI to auto-generate graphic content, auto-post at certain times, and then he's going to leave. And every week, he's going to look at his bank account and see his money, and he's never going to touch the app ever again. It's already happening on Instagram with less explicit content. There are accounts that post pictures of women that have hundreds of thousands of followers. It varies from thousands to 100,000 or so. Fake women. Some of them are really good at hiding it. Some of them are very obviously fake and people
Deep
know.
fakes or just regular
is-
fakes?
AI generated.
So just
It's
online sex
beyond
work in
deepfake.
general,
Yeah.
or like
Real sex work completely.
I
They
don't,
used
I
to
just
do
don't
that
feel like you can
for-
replace the touch of a woman.
It's that already men under
Yeah.
30 are more likely to be virgins and have they're excluding themselves from these experiences. So what's happening is right now our perception is based on an older generation that is less adept to the technology and a younger generation more adept to it. And so because there are guys who will buy physical touch, we assume it must always be the case. No, the younger generation is going to grow up in a world of AI sexual stimulation, and that will be their predilection. So when they're older, they're going to be like, I don't want to be touched. I want to have the robot say naughty things to me. But then you're going to get robo-sex. There's going to be human android weird garbage, or there could be there could be neural stimulation through Neuralink. That is more speculative and theoretical. What I can say right now is there's a younger generation of men who are increasingly virgins. They don't expect to have sex, and many of them will never, because porn has warped their brains to the point where they want to be banging like elf women from the world of,
Right.
Lord of the Rings or something. And so they're not going to be physically attracted to a real person, in which case they're going to need a robo digital girlfriend to get them off, and they're not going to be seeking this stuff out. That's not every single guy everywhere, but I think we're seeing that increasingly to the point where a lot of guys will probably just more easily opt for digital girlfriends. There will still, I'm not saying it'll be completely gone. Obviously, there will always be some people who have, fetishes that they want fulfilled in the real world and things like that. But I think it's increasingly becoming digital. It's increasingly becoming fictional. Furries or whatever, they have to dress up and do these things. It's not always sexual for furries. I
But
get
our
it.
society is getting so much dumber. So like, in order to keep up with AI, people have to stay educated. And, the fact that people are passing through colleges, like by using AI to pass through colleges, like, are people getting smarter or are they just getting dumber? Like, and how are we going to sustain
Dumber.
the AI systems if people are just getting dumber and dumber?
Allow me to reference Star Trek for everybody.
Oh,
There's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where the crew goes to a planet where they have an oracle device that does everything for them, and they have no idea what it is or how it works.
Living the life.
Sure, until it breaks, and then they start dying because they have no idea what to do. Yeah, and so I do think we are headed towards that idiocracy style world.
Oh,
where,
absolutely.
I think it's like this and like that. The rise of artificial intelligence, the reduction or just degeneration of regular human intelligence. But this, I was thinking about this a lot the past few days, actually, like where we're headed as a society with artificial intelligence, with this all new world order stuff, Neuralink, everything. And I really confidently, wholeheartedly believe that the natural order will always win and always supersede over the new world order. There's all these things that come up. There might be AI, this, that. Nothing will ever replace the natural order because it's God's will and it's God's way. And I truly have so much trust in God that the natural way of the world. The reason that biology is the same exact way it was 50,000 years ago, aside from maybe our wisdom teeth don't grow in anymore because we don't have to chow down food. We could cut it with a nice little steak knife at a nice restaurant. But aside from that, biology is essentially the same. When all these transgender people, when they dig up their graves in 100 years from now, they're going to see bones. And based off their bones, they're going to know if you were a man or a woman. It doesn't matter how you
I'm an
dressed.
anthropologist.
They're not going to see the nail polish on your fingers.
However, plastics, endocrine disruptors, I think
Yes.
these things are having,
Right.
and drugs and petrochemicals, etc. Yeah, they're
Seed
changing
oils, yeah.
changing our biology.
Yes, that I
What
would
is the
agree.
thing about
Yeah.
seed oils? Because I vape, and ever
What's on seed
since
oil?
I think vaping's really bad.
is
Well,
it-
seed oils is like canola oil, things like that are much more difficult for your body to break down, and they can basically like clog your arteries, make you more at risk for cancer, diabetes, all problems. That's why olive oil is very natural, but you can't cook at it at a
What about
high
avocado
heat.
oil?
Avocado
no
oil is
idea.
the best because it can be cooked at a high heat.
What
Is
about
that a
coconut oil?
seed?
Coconut
Like-
oil is a trans fat, so I try not to use
Really?
it.
What?
Yes. Or saturated fat. Saturated fat.
Is it really?
Yes, it's 100% saturated fat, so it's
Wow.
just not
Like,
so
I don't think I'm
healthy.
gonna
Oh,
give
is it?
up
Does that
vaping
mean
just
like
because, but
solid at room
I had no
temperature,
idea.
or what is it?
Yes. No, solid at room temperature, liquid when it's heated up.
Is that what
yeah.
saturated fat means?
I don't know. I
So
don't know,
who
but
are-
I just
who are
know
you,
that
who
people
are-
think it's really good for you, and it's actually not. If you're gonna, in small proportions, it's fine, but just like it's not healthier than canola oil or anything of that nature.
I heard canola oil was produced to be an engine lubricant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, that's
wanna
insane,
eat
isn't
that.
it? Right?
A lot of tampons are made with like byproducts of what's
it's like some
gasoline,
Yeah,
petroleum byproducts.
yeah, that's what it is.
That's why you should be very careful. Like there are so many.
It's
zooming on
right.
There's
right.
so many things in society
know.
now that are here to mess things up, from candles, from certain things.
Everything
in our
messes up
drinks.
our hormones. From
Everything.
men to women,
Yeah.
everybody.
But
And that's what's going
yeah.
on with the whole gender dysphoria. And actually, when it came to that, and I expressed to people that knew me a while ago, I suffered from gender dysphoria for a
really?
while. And then I even got to the point where I almost went to a surgeon. And I was like, you know
Wow.
what?
Wow.
Screw
How old
this.
were you?
This was, let's see, this was actually a couple of years ago. So it wasn't that long ago.
Early
And I was like, you know
20s?
what? This doesn't seem right. This isn't, I'm like, there's got to be something wrong here. So my brother-in-law, who he works for the Space Force, he's like, look, you need to go get your hormones checked. So I went and I got my hormones checked. I found out that I had a terrible hormone imbalance. So I took DHEA, natural. I took progesterone and a couple of like natural things that my
Female
doctor
hormones.
gave me. Female hormone. Yeah, like actual gender affirming female
Yeah.
hormones.
Yeah.
Did not experience any dysphoria ever again. Like
That's amazing.
It's
Congratulations.
incredible. Like I thank you. I feel like more people should look into this.
What was the imbalance? Did you have
That's really
more
powerful
testosterone?
testimony.
Yeah, it was my testosterone was high, my prolactin level was high, and my estrogen level or it was my progesterone level was
Low?
something was off. Yeah. So and I'm like I
Interesting.
just knew that something was there had to be a link. So I was like I'm not jumping to some crazy fucking surgery. I know it's not going to fix anything, and hopefully this gives people some sort of hope that they don't have
Perhaps-
to
Yeah.
jump to that.
Perhaps instead of cross-sex hormones, the solution may be
That's what I was saying
Regular,
before with
yeah.
these beta males that go to transition to women, like Leah Thomas, all these people. Leah Thomas is absolutely not.
What about the
Oh,
minors?
testosterone.
What about the minors?
Wait.
Like, what if we get their hormones checked and we find out that
The who?
they're inbound? The minors, like the
Oh.
minors that are
Yeah,
trans.
that's a
what
huge
if we?
problem.
But-
their doctors just do it now.
there's a distinction between there's I think we've defined 3 different types of transgender what would you call it, like
Categories.
yeah
Right.
one is gender dysphoria. We've had many of these people on the show. We're friends with these people. They experience dysphoria, anxiety, they suffer, they want to feel more aligned.
Right. Clearly, you can see I experience a lot of anxiety.
But then there's the fetishists
Yeah.
who are sexually aroused at the thought of being the other sex. I don't
What's the word for that? It was like
there's 2. There's autogynephilia and autoandrophilia.
okay.
That's the one men who like want to feel the pain of women, right?
No. So like it is widely believed that Leah Thomas is an
Yes, like
They're
I've seen
sexually
the
aroused by the
sexual-
looking at themselves as a woman.
There's
and they
some
want
men,
other
though,
people
yeah.
to say it because
Yeah.
it makes them,
There's also some men, I saw recent videos on social media of men who, there was like some also psychological definition of it where men want to feel the pain of like women's reproductive organs where they'll take hormones and things to simulate like PMS pains because it turns them on.
Christ.
that's
The idea of-
that's a component of
Okay, yeah, so
autoandrophilia.
that's what I was
I don't want to live
just
on this
confirming
planet
it's the same
anymore.
thing. That is so
I mean, look.
disgusting.
Yeah,
and
but
sick,
let's be real.
twisted.
a lot of this stuff has always existed. You just didn't know it existed. And now,
Right, 'cause social media throws it down
Exactly.
our faces.
so it used to be that people who had things that were atypical would not bring them up out of fear of being ostracized, because social animals, we need each other to survive.
They used to go to the circus, and now they go to OnlyFans.
Not so much, actually. I think like the freak show thing was. I was reading about this. I don't know if I could remember enough to get into it, but there was a combination of fake, like
Not the circus, like pay $1 to see.
but also like really horrible
It's
trafficking
funny about like
stuff.
the fattest
Oh,
guy
yeah.
is like now just like the normal guy.
No, but like
I was gonna say, you want to see a
right.
bearded woman, you don't have to pay $5 at the
Right.
circus. You could just open Twitter.
But so you have, people are finding community with people who typically would not find community before. And
Right.
so it's creating these spaces where people feel like they're justified. I guess a simple way to put it is with cancel culture, you'll get this big company for some reason doing something insane, firing somebody. And it's because 50 people sent an email and they've never experienced anything like that. They assume their customers are in revolt, when in reality, their customers don't care at all. Activists who don't buy their product are attacking the company, and they assume they have to behave a certain way. Bud Light recently, lost out bigly because of trying to play this weird pandering game to a small minority and then sacrifice 25% of their market share.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sucked having to not use or not drink Bud Light anymore, because that was usually my go-to, and I swore it off as soon as this
How
happened.
Bud Light, though? Come
I
on.
don't know. I know. I'm
Modelo's
just the
better, I
worst for
think,
liking.
deserves that
Okay,
spot.
I like Corona. I like Heineken. I like all this, but that was just my go-to, and
I guess to be fair, like Bud Light was the I'm just here
I
to
know it
barbecue
tastes like
and
this.
Yeah.
I know, guys.
I was gonna say, that's what we drank in college,
No,
like
like-
Millie Light.
Don't kink shame me.
we insult it, but Bud Light it's like nothing. It's like you're just drinking alcohol. It's like you want to
Right.
drink. So, I get it. Coors Light, Natty Light, Bud
Yeah.
Light. You're at a party and you just want to have a beer or whatever.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like, that's why Bud Light failed, or I shouldn't say failed, but is failing. It's because there's no brand loyalty to garbage beer. I'm drinking it because it's there.
I think Bud Light was specific. I was actually just on Fox Business the other day talking about this, and I think Bud Light highlights the difference between men and women in society. Dylan Mulvaney, a man, had multiple brand deals with female-oriented companies like tampons and sports
Patriarchy.
bras and all these things. Those companies are fine. They're not being boycotted. They didn't lose a single dollar of the market
Oh,
share.
that's not true. That's not true.
Tampax, Nike, they're
Which one-
fine.
Tell me which
They're-
ones they
they're-
are right now, so I know.
It wasn't nearly as pronounced as Bud Light. Bud Light was massive, but there was negative press and minor detriment to these companies over Dylan Mulvaney.
It was probably
There-
so minor that I never heard or saw it. I still use these companies. I mean, I never used Nike, but for tampon
They're-
brands, they're like, they
I mean,
own the
we
market.
have the power,
We don't really have that
guys.
many
the
options.
power is in our hands.
But Bud
We got
Light,
this.
Bud
We're
Light.
winning this.
Well, so here's something I want to bring up in this context.
Yeah.
Why is it that it's not men who love this stuff? It's women.
That's exactly the point I
Women
was
absolutely love watching men dress like women. Like, men aren't watching RuPaul's Drag Race. It is women.
I used to love that. I know. I used to
Right.
love that show, and now it's like, so it's not even taboo anymore. So
But
I'm
why
like, I don't
do-
even care about it anymore.
All of this woke stuff and gender stuff, women love it. It's not. It's the men
Not
who are,
us, but yeah.
No, but like in general, it is not men as a general group who are into any of these things. They care very little. It is overwhelmingly females. It is like what was it? One leftist on Twitter said that TERFs are supporting the patriarchy by defining what womanhood and femininity is and gatekeeping it from non-traditional or atypical women or something like that. And it's like the weirdest thing ever to
Like,
be
how many
like.
of these are foreign women, though? Like, how many of these, like, I wonder how many are
was an
bots,
American
how many
woman
are
who said
foreign?
this.
Like, especially on Twitter, though.
I think women are so tolerant and accepting and just, yeah, you live your best life. That's something in the modern era. Like, you do you, honey bun. But no, like, we have an obligation to stand up for truth and what's right and what's wrong. And it took men standing up for a male-oriented company to
Right.
come out and say, we will not handle this mockery of women. Being a woman is not just wearing a skimpy outfit and going like, ha ha ha, I'm a
Right,
woman.
that's a caricature.
Day 70 of being a woman, I cried today. Like, women are strong, women are
the-
amazing,
look,
and
the
it
Dylan-
disgusts me.
Dylan Mulvaney, I think, is evil.
I agree.
Dylan
Sick
Mulvaney
and
is
twisted.
not trans. And this is the example I use, but I think it bears repeating if we're talking about it. We've had many of friends of our shows of the show who have been guests multiple times trans.
Yeah.
And what has been explained to me in many independent circumstances by different people who suffer gender dysphoria, when Dylan Mulvaney started singing "Look at My Bulge," it proved Dylan is not trans.
Right.
Trans people who have
They don't get
dysphoria
excited about that.
get excited and want 10 million people to see it.
No,
The-
they
I-
kill themselves when you misgender them.
Right.
Like, but
Yeah.
the people who are
Literally
truly,
genocide.
the people who are suffering gender dysphoria get severe anxiety over something like that. Dylan Mulvaney is doing, I guess, what the Kardashians do, or Madonna does, getting surgery to fit a persona for media and for
Personal gain.
Yeah, it's like, is this I think that's the third category outside of there's the people who suffer gender dysphoria, there are people who are fetishists, and then there's people like Dylan Mulvaney who are like, I will be rich and famous if I do this, right? Like, I've got messed up teeth, like they're crooked, I'm genetically missing a tooth. I don't care. There is nothing that I care about in terms of going and spending 2 years getting surgery done and whatever. It doesn't do anything for me. There are other people who are like, if I want to be in this movie, I have to eat 10 pounds of chicken per week and lift constantly so that I can look like Thor. You have to transform your body to
Right.
be successful in this area. And then you have beyond that, the people who say, working out won't cut it. I need a bigger butt or whatever. And so they get surgery or plastic surgery or implants so they can be that individual. I look at Dylan Mulvaney as just another media personality who's trying to fit a caricature through body transformation like any other throughout the history of Hollywood, right? That's
yeah.
Real trans people should be offended by all of this, by drag queens and phonies and.
Well, not so much drag queens, because like,
Drag queens know they're men at the end of the day.
yeah,
So
like
some
drag
of
is,
them, but
well, look, people are all different, but if we're going by like the true definition of drag, it is men who know they're men who are putting on a performance, albeit I think it's like.
I believe it's adult entertainment.
It is. It's gay burlesque.
Yeah, it's
But
all
they-
sexualized.
And they hate when I say that. They hate when I say that it's adult
Not all of
entertainment.
them. We had the debate 2 weeks ago or whatever. We had
Yeah.
an older drag queen who's like, it's absolutely for adults. It's nightclub stuff. Kids shouldn't
And
be
it's
there.
not like it's always sexualized, but it's adult entertainment in the same way like South Park is. Like you wouldn't
Yes.
just drag your kids into your room if you're watching South Park. You'd say, "Can you guys,
Not for you.
This is not for you. It's not polite." You know?
I am offended by many trans men, the things they say about manhood and being a man. And it's probably the same way many women are offended by trans women. This idea, a male will never know what it's like to be female, will never know what womanhood is. It's an impossibility. It's true for both males and females. There is no way for a person and it's much the same as a short person will not understand what it's like to be a tall person or vice versa. There's pros and there's cons, there's benefits. The idea that we're entering this transhumanist world, there's a lot of like offensive assumptions about what it is, what it's like to be someone else. And everyone always assumes it's always better. Not everybody, but a lot of people are like, a lot of like incel or MGTOW. I'm not trying to drag all of these guys, but they'll be like, women have an uneasy mode. Women get to do this, that, or otherwise. And it's like, it's pros and cons. Women earlier in life are more protected. Women have an easier time getting entry-level positions and jobs at a younger age than men. Men start off with low society. I'm just trying to cite anthropology studies. I know the young Turks and feminists are going to start freaking out that I'm saying this. Men start off life with zero social value. They have no skills. They can't protect families or protect anybody. So they're considered low social status.
Right.
Women start life as the highest point of social status, valuable for family, for child rearing, etc. And then over time, it inverts. As a man gets older and develops skills and stature and power, his social value increases. As a woman gets older, her ability to nurture and rear children decreases, and so does social value. I'm not saying these things are good things, but these are typically observed in all societies.
Right.
And so, I forgot where I was going with that, but, my point was, you have trans people. I could understand why a guy is like, women have it so much easier growing up and seeing that and wishing they had easier in life, especially if they're a short, effeminate male. And then I see people like, Elliot Page.
Yeah.
These individuals who are female, who have gone through a female existence, being like, I actually feel like a man. I'm like, you have no idea what men feel. You have no idea what it's like to experience life as a man. You have no idea what it's like to be treated like trash. And I'm not saying every guy goes through this. Some guys are born in wealth and privilege with silver
And men
spoons.
typically age slower than women do. So trans women are obviously going to age slower than natural women
Collagen.
do as well. Yeah.
Twice the collagen in the skin. So wrinkles and things like that. But it's just like, I can understand what women are saying when they're like, trans women are insulting. You don't know what it's like. And there was this great Michael Knowles, I believe, was giving a speech, and he asked a trans woman, "How do you know you're a trans woman?" And the trans woman, did not say, or what the trans woman said was, "I heard a trans woman give a description of their experience, and then I realized." And Michael Knowles says, "Okay, so that's not feeling like a woman. That's feeling like a trans woman, a different thing."
Right.
Yeah.
What's so bad about saying I'm proud to be a trans woman? Like, if they're so proud about who they are, and I don't agree with being proud about something that you have absolutely zero control over. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are proud of who you are, you should be proud to be a trans woman or a trans man or whoever you are. Why do you need to be a woman? Why do you need to be a man? What's so bad about being trans? If there's nothing bad about it, why not be proud about who you are as a trans person?
Yeah,
Because the answer is their entire sense of self rests on other people's approval of them. I've said this argument a million times, especially when I used to table for Turning Point in Maryland. I would have like a little table outside and get into debates with college students. It got very heated. And I forgot what I just said, honestly. What did you ask again?
Being proud.
Why aren't they proud to just say they're
proud?
trans?
So I've had people where they come up to me on social media too. People comment like, "Oh, like we can't even tell that you're trans." Like, ha ha ha. Especially with the hate I get, that was a big thing. I'm like, so you guys are saying you claim to support trans people, but then you're using it as an insult.
Yep.
But at the end of the day,
They do with
I don't
everything.
care. My sense of self is not damaged one bit if you misgender me or call me a man, because I know I'm a woman.
But this is a really good point.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, we had on 2 drag queens, one who was drag but also identified as trans, and the trans individual said, "We want other people to treat us the way we see ourselves and see us the way we see ourselves." Like, that's impossible.
That's impossible.
Right.
But this is
with all the self-harm
That's so
harm
much to
scars,
ask.
you want people to treat you.
Well, but this is my point. When the left will insult right by saying, like, they'll call Ben Shapiro an incel, and it's like, Ben Shapiro has children.
4.
It's like,
I don't think he's an incel, but
kids.
that
man
me
is
and Ben
okay
Shapiro
with
have had
children.
some disagreements.
No, but, like,
over time. But I
they-
will definitely welcome him to a debate.
They say they don't care about traditional gender roles, but then use it as a point of attack. They say things like, "I can't even tell you're trans," because in their mind, they're like, if someone doesn't see me how I want to be seen, I'm hurt. So I will intentionally do that to you. But on whatever this side is,
They don't realize it doesn't affect us because we're secure in our
Right,
sense of self.
exactly.
My sense and value
Well,
of
now-
who I am
now
is
I am
not
anyways, now that I-
determined by society. I give myself my own value. God gave me my value. I know my value. And that's, if only everybody knew their value, I think we would have a lot less societal problems, because women put themselves in bad
Right,
situations.
and I really feel like
men
now
do
that's we're
too.
circling back to the beginning, because I really do feel like I know my own value as well, and I know I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with who I am as a person, and I'm happy knowing that like I'm one of God's children, and nobody can take that from me. So, that
I think maybe one of the big components of the culture war are people who have no strength in self.
right.
They fear how they're perceived, and that's why they fall in line. So they follow the mob. It's why they engage in cancel culture, because they have to affirm themselves by getting approval from others.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same when they would comment plus size queen on my videos.
What?
They used to,
Oh, no,
thank
hell
you.
no.
They used to always comment that. I'm like, I'm size 2. Like,
She
come on.
is
Body
a
positivity.
dime.
Like, that's the thing. It was the people who would have in their bio
Yep.
body positivity, celebrating people like Lizzo, who are like probably
Oh, yeah.
way more than the submarine that got lost. Like, they support these people, and then they come to my page and they comment these things, which just shows that even the people that claim to support these wild leftist ideas, they know in their mind subconsciously, whether they want to admit it or not, it's wrong, and it's
Right.
not true. It's not the truth,
Yep.
and truth
They're
matters.
living,
Word
they're so
matters.
far into their lies
Yes.
that they are believing them.
Yes,
Like,
they don't even realize how.
But not necessarily. I think they say things not for truth or honesty. They say things as a signal that they're part of the hive.
right.
And that means they also know these things they claim are insulting to other people.
right.
Yes.
So body
They get a kick
positivity,
out of it.
the machine tells me, I'll say it. But I know that you're offended if I call you fat.
Yeah.
Right.
There's the, I tweeted this out, that we should start complimenting
I was about to ask
women.
if it was you who said that. Like, you like
There-
Lizzo?
The-
You just like her.
But I'm not going to, like, it's not a completely original idea to me. My idea is derivative from a bunch of other ideas. One was a joke where it's a guy said, if Lizzo is beautiful, how come the woman cried when I said she looked like Lizzo? And then I tweeted, we should start complimenting women by saying they look like Lizzo or Dylan Mulvaney. And the media lost their minds. They got offended by the idea, and they're
I
like,
love
how
that.
dare he? I'm like, why are you mad at me? It's really weird. If I virtue signaled, if I was on the left and virtue signaled in their direction and said that, they would be like, how brave. But because they know I oppose them, they know what I'm saying is detrimental to their
Absolutely
hive.
none of their arguments hold water. They know it, we know it, they know that we know it, and it's gonna end soon. Real soon.
My favorite line has always been: if the Democrats Democrats didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have standards at all.
Right.
Rules for you, not for me. It's all these things of, oh, you must support everyone's lifestyle. It's really, if we take it for what it is, you must support everybody's lifestyle, whether or not your personal beliefs disagree with it. You must not only support it, you must actively be an anti-racist, and the same for all these other things. You must actively go against people who don't support it. Like, you have to become a warrior in our fight, even if you don't agree with us. And if you don't, we will try to get you fired from your job. We will call your children's school. We will get you kicked out of your own school. They will stop at nothing to destroy people who simply just want to live their own lives, which is all that they're asking that we respect other people to do.
It's a cult.
And it's truly
And
a
now
cult,
we're
and they're all
circling back again.
brainwashed. And then they come to tell us that
Affecting
we're
other people's
brainwashed.
lives, no matter what they want to do.
Especially the not feminist or the feminists now. They come to me. One of my most viral videos got 12 million views on TikTok about talking about modern day feminism and how I don't want to be equal to a man. I don't want to wear a suit to work. I want to wear a pretty
Would you
dress.
consider yourself a feminist at all? I don't
Absolutely
know.
not.
Okay.
I'm definitely against. I love femininity, but the modern day feminism is led to the destruction of society essentially, and I radically oppose these radical feminists. Thank you for asking. But with traditional femininity and the way that society is just led nowadays, it's just gotten so far off the beaten track where they don't even realize, like, we are just so off and removed from what true femininity should be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we should force women to work on petroleum rigs and in sewers, right? I mean I'm being facetious, but when the first feminist waves came about, one of the big arguments against women's suffrage was voting rights came with civic responsibility.
Draft.
And fire brigade.
Yeah.
And the women who opposed it were like, I do not want to be on a fire brigade. This is insane. But there were women being like, yes. And then there were weak men being like, don't care, sure, whatever. And then ultimately the extremely weak men said, I know we'll win the votes of these women if we give them everything they want. So they capitulate and say, women now have the right to vote with no civic responsibility. And
Those
that's
charlatans.
It's a recipe for disaster. Women should have the right to vote with civic responsibility.
Right.
And now women don't have to sign up for the selective service. Men are forced to by law, but women get all the benefits and privilege of society without the responsibilities shared by men. Totally sexist. I believe it should be completely equal. If we're going to have equality, then women get civic responsibility along with men in every
I mean, I don't
capacity.
think anybody should have to sign up for the draft, but I understand the concern, but do you guys really think that we're going to be drafted anytime soon?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really?
Last
think
year,
that?
the government started. I
mean,
wrote a research paper on this about how probable.
Maybe
it
you
is
guys
that we
know
have
more
a
about
new
this
draft.
than I do, but
No,
I mean,
because
please educate me.
They just
sophomore year of college, they started redoing the lottery draft, like started getting it in place again, so that if we do need, China's willing to wage war on us at any moment in time.
Biden just activated the ready reserves.
Yep.
Really?
Biden called.
Okay, see, I didn't know any of this, so thank
look,
you. I appreciate that.
This is
Scary.
there are people who, when you sign up for the military, in your contract, like say it's at 4 years, it's like 4 years and then you're out. It includes a provision saying we can recall you back for another amount of time.
Till you're like 50
Does
or
it count
something,
if
right?
No, it's only like
Oh.
two more years.
Oh,
something
okay.
like that.
Does it count if they're trans? Like, can a trans person be drafted? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
I mean,
now-
Yes.
yeah.
They clarified this specifically that if you are male, it doesn't matter how you identify, we're drafting you. And if you're female, it doesn't matter. You cannot be drafted. And they said, we don't care about your identity. But Biden just called in, it's the ready reserves and what's the other one? Anyway, he called people back and he's sending them to Europe, specifically over Ukraine.
I was about to say Ukraine.
So could we be drafted? Yes.
Guys better
Absolutely.
start learning Russian. Telling you what.
Ukrainian, Polish, Russian would be good. Would be good to know right now. Language is so important for survivability and conflict.
Best I could do is Hebrew.
I'll tell you, I was in Turkey and I went to a neighborhood where they were fighting with cops and they came up screaming in Turkish at me while holding a Molotov cocktail to my face.
What?
And I'm just like, I have no idea what they're saying. So I just put my hands up, smiled, and
That's
just
terrifying.
You
turned.
pull out Google Translate.
Right.
Hello,
I'm sorry, can
I
you say
don't
that
want to fight.
Except if you tried pulling out your phone while guys are screaming at you holding weapons, they might just shoot you.
Cut your hands off.
That's
So, learning these languages might be helpful if you want to learn how to say things
Russian
like,
is actually
"Don't shoot."
very easy. I
Yes.
mean, it isn't easy to read, but to speak it, it's definitely
Yeah.
very easy to learn.
I don't think she's still alive, but I just want to give a shout out to Phyllis Schlafly for stopping the ERA, which would have had women had to draft. Thank you, lady.
R.I.P.
I really appreciate it because I don't think women should have to draft in general. there is something
I
in
do.
society that you get. So I want to hear more about that. There's something in society that I think you either get
I'd
or
fight.
you don't. Women and children have inherently more value than men in society. That is just something. It's why in the Titanic, it's a certain thing. I don't really even really know. It just is a thing that you kind of get
Well,
it
simple.
or
Well,
not.
wait, if we
it's-
all get drafted, then who's going to take care of the children? Then the government's going to be taking care of the children.
Draft does not
Okay.
mean combat.
Okay.
So the first thing I'll say is the reason why women and children have more value. One, children are the next generation. We're going
course.
to protect them. We
Right.
cease to exist.
And women make the
great
next
children.
generation.
If you have 100 men and 100 women and 99 men die, that one guy, he can have 100 babies in 9 months because the women are the ones who make the babies and he just provides, seed. If 99 women die, you're done. Society's
Society's
over.
over, yeah.
You can have one baby in 9 months. In 20 years, maybe, no, that's it. It's over. That's why the women are always more valuable than the men.
Yeah.
As for drafting, the reason I think women should be drafted is I'm not talking about this colloquial draft and they send you to Vietnam. That's stupid. The draft is supposed to be, in its purest form, we are attacked and we must defend ourselves. And everyone is called to do what they can to protect our country from
Okay.
aggression.
So
But with the
perhaps
dra-
just taking care of the children just could be the.
And combat. But what I mean is,
Okay.
if, ladies, if you're at home with the kids or without the kids, whatever it is you're doing, and a foreign invader is marching through the streets, the women are going to pick up whatever weapons they have available and defend their home the same as any other man would. There is no question that if a woman is in her home and the man is off at war and an enemy invasion is marching through the town, that woman will unquestionably grab whatever weapon she has available to defend her home and her family. That's what the draft is supposed to be. The local, warden or whoever comes up and says, ladies, yep, not an ideal situation. We're bringing your kids to a safe location. We're the only ones left to fight. Of course the women are going to say yes. They're not going to sit there and be like, no, I'll cower in fear they'll do everything they can to protect their kids. So the idea of like drafting is, in the more modern sense, men are going to go fight. The first and foremost, when it comes to a conflict and war, the men are on the front line. Women can be manufacturing, they can be building industry and running infrastructure and doing everything to support at home because it's less preferable to have women running through the streets fighting in conflict. But the draft isn't supposed to be, hey, there's a war in Vietnam because communists are spreading out, so we're going to take our young men and send them over there. That's insane. So in the truest sense of conscription, I'm like, everybody should stand up and defend, their neighborhood, their communities,
No, I
their
agree.
families.
I totally agree. Yeah.
For the record, just let the record reflect that as much as like in terms of the traditional aspect and just values of men and women, I think women should have less obligations because we have certain other obligations that are not written into the law in society in a way, like certain obligations with all the pains that come along with pregnancy. It's not just carrying a baby inside your stomach for 9 months. There are so many ways
Which
that your
soon they won't
body
need us for.
changes.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like,
Nausea.
y'all are done. We're going to grow babies in bags.
Oh gosh, I hope not. I want to have my own babies, but
You can.
God willing, I will have many of them. but-
Designer babies, genetically engineered in bags. It's going
Oh.
to happen.
I did
Order
hear
them on
I did hear you
Amazon?
talk about that on one podcast that somebody shared it with me. So I will be praying for you. I do hope that
Wait, what?
when it comes to like having children.
Oh yeah, thank you. I love it. Not right now, but
do
God
hope
willing,
so
I'm
at some
excited to have
point.
many
God
children
willing.
one day. But specifically, now I forgot what I was talking about again. Sorry, I was also running on
Babies-
4 hours of sleep before the
babies
babies.
born in bags and-
Oh yes, for the record, let the record reflect. Even though with the value stuff and women, thank you, with all that stuff, I have my opinions. As an American citizen, as a Yankee Doodle, as a patriot, I love this country with all my heart. And if we go to war with China, I will be the first person to pick up a rifle and say, ship me out there. Let's go fight for freedom. Because my family's immigrants. I am so grateful for the opportunities that America provides. This is the greatest country in the history of mankind and will forever be. And I would do anything to protect this country.
But I'm more of we should not be shipping out there.
Wherever
You know what
I
mean?
would have to go to
If-
protect America's borders, I would go without second thought because I love this country.
Yeah.
I think anyone who
Well, while we're
is
on the
entitled to
topic,
rights should die for them.
While we're on the topic of sex work, I mean, they also work as great spies too. They also have worked as great
Oh, yeah.
spies.
Fun
I mean,
Fun.
Yeah.
No, for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Eric's the best spy is probably a woman who's going to. That's the you get it.
I would
the guys,
love
you know
that
what I mean?
job. If we were in
Against
war,
espionage.
oh yeah, I'm all over it.
Government, if you're watching, all the FBI agents who monitor our accounts,
You've
if you're
been
watching
warned.
this and you need an agent,
like, "Ooh,
we
this is
got
good.
you.
We got one."
They're like, oh,
All
thanks
right.
for the hook it up.
So that was great. We'll wrap it up there, I guess. We've a few minutes over, but it's okay. So thank you guys for hanging out. It was a fantastic discussion. Hope everybody was enlightened, and there'll be many a great debate on the internet. Do you guys want to shout anything out before we wrap up?
Follow me on Instagram, the Debra. That's really all I could think to shout out. But this was really fun, and I was really glad to finally be on your show. Thank you, Ted.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, thank you. I also appreciate it. My Twitter is Delta Asher Hill. I am coming out with my new book soon. It is called No Horse for Hire. And I did want to give a shout out to Spencer Hill, my spouse, and Norma Jean Almodovar. So
You also gave me this book,
yeah,
Sexual Liberty.
That is my first book. Thank you.
Right on. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for watching. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. We've got next week is going to be wild. I'm not going to say who yet.
It gets wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to bring security in
Not wet and
for
wild.
next
Oh,
week.
no.
We're going to have a security guard in the room for next week's show, and it'll be fun.
Cats aren't good enough.
But maybe we'll what I'm hoping is for the next shows on Monday we can put up this Friday 10 in the morning. Here we go. So anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.